They called him the Beast of the North, a king who didn't negotiate, didn't forgive, didn't feel. But Serena Vale wasn't supposed to meet him. She was supposed to marry the man who would destroy her family from the inside, smile through the ceremony, and disappear into a life that wasn't hers. Instead, she ran. Straight into a blizzard, straight into wolves, straight into him. What happens when this girl everyone underestimated becomes the one thing an untouchable king can't walk away from? Stay until the end to find out. Drop a like and tell us what city you're watching from. What? The dress was too tight. Serena Vale stood in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom, staring at a stranger. White silk clung to her ribs like a threat. The bodice was hand-stitched with seed pearls her mother had sewn on herself during sleepless nights, fingers bleeding onto the fabric. A labor of love, she'd called it. A noose, Serena thought now. Outside the window, the October sun was setting over Ashford, painting the valley in shades of rust and dying gold. She could hear the hired musicians tuning their instruments in the garden below, smell the roasted lamb and rosemary her mother had insisted on, even though they couldn't afford it, see the guests arriving in their Sunday clothes, whispering behind gloved hands, poor Vales, marrying their daughter off to Marcus Hale. Desperate times. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. "Serena?" Her mother's voice drifted through the door, thin and careful. "It's time, sweetheart." Sweetheart, as if this wasn't a transaction. As if Serena hadn't spent the last 3 months watching her mother's hand shake every time the creditors came knocking. As if her younger brother Daniel hadn't stopped going to school because they couldn't pay the fees. As if her father's name wasn't being dragged through the mud in every trading house from here to the capital. The Vales were drowning, and Marcus Hale had thrown them a rope with strings attached. Serena turned from the window. Her reflection caught the light, pale skin, dark hair swept into an elaborate updo that had taken her cousin 2 hours to pin. She looked like a doll, painted and posed and utterly powerless. The door creaked open. Her mother slipped inside, closing it softly behind her. Margaret Vale had been beautiful once. Serena could see it in old photographs, in the fine bones of her face, the grace in her movements. But worry had carved lines around her mouth, hollowed out her cheeks. She wore her best dress, navy blue, mended at the seams, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You look perfect," Margaret whispered. Serena said nothing. Her mother crossed the room, adjusted a pin in Serena's hair that didn't need adjusting. Her hands were shaking. I know you didn't choose this, Serena, but Marcus is a good man. He'll take care of you. He'll take care of all of us." "Will he?" Margaret's hands stilled. "What do you mean?" Serena met her mother's gaze in the mirror. "Did you know he's been buying up Father's debts? Not to forgive them, to own them, to own us." Her mother's face went very still. "Where did you hear that?" "I have ears, Mother. I'm not stupid." Serena pulled away, pacing to the other side of the room. "Marcus doesn't want a wife. He wants a prize, something to show off at parties while he guts what's left of our business from the inside. That's not... He told me." "Yeet." The words came out flat. "Last week, when we were alone. He said once we're married, Father will sign over the company, that it's the only way to save it." She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Save it for him, maybe." Margaret pressed a hand to her mouth. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, "What choice do we have?" And there it was. The truth neither of them wanted to say out loud. Serena looked at her mother. This woman who had sacrificed everything, who had worked her fingers raw trying to hold the family together after her husband's business partners betrayed him, who had sold her jewelry, her furniture, her pride, piece by piece, who was now selling her daughter. "I'm sorry," Margaret whispered. "I'm so sorry, Serena. But if you don't do this, we lose everything. The house, the land, Daniel's future. Your father will go to debtor's prison, and I..." Her voice cracked. "I can't watch this family fall apart. I can't." Serena felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart. Something harder. Something that had been holding her upright for months. She walked to the window again. Downstairs, Marcus Hale had just arrived. She could see him stepping out of his carriage, all polished boots and expensive tailoring. He was handsome in a cold, calculating way, sharp jaw, blonde hair slicked back, eyes that assessed everything like a ledger. He greeted her father with a firm handshake and a smile that didn't touch his eyes. Her father. Edwin Vale looked small next to Marcus, shrunken, his shoulders hunched under the weight of debts he couldn't pay, betrayals he couldn't undo. Serena's hands curled into fists in the white silk. 5 minutes, her mother said softly. I'll tell them you need 5 more minutes. She left, closing the door with a soft click. Serena stood alone in the room where she'd grown up, where she'd dreamed of adventure, of freedom, of a life bigger than Ashford's narrow streets and narrower minds. The walls were bare now. She'd sold her books, her paintings, everything that could be turned into coins. All that remained was the bed, the mirror, and the girl in the white dress who looked like she was already a ghost. What choice do we have? Her mother's voice echoed in her head, and something inside Serena Vale snapped. She moved without thinking, ripped the pins from her hair, yanked open her wardrobe. The dress, this suffocating pearl-studded cage, came off in a storm of tearing fabric and flying buttons. She didn't care. She pulled on riding pants, a wool shirt, her brother's old coat, boots, gloves. She grabbed the small leather satchel she'd hidden under her bed 2 weeks ago when some part of her had known it would come to this. Inside, 3 days' worth of bread and cheese, a canteen, the last of her mother's silver stolen from the kitchen drawer, a knife. Her hands were steady now, calm. The panic had burned itself out, leaving behind something colder, clearer. She wasn't going to marry Marcus Hale. She wasn't going to save her family by destroying herself. She was going to run. The window opened silently. She'd oiled the hinges weeks ago. The oak tree outside had been her escape route as a child, when she'd snuck out to explore the woods beyond the estate. She climbed onto the sill, slung the satchel over her shoulder, and reached for the nearest branch. Below, the wedding guests were filtering into the garden. The musicians started playing. She could hear her mother's voice, bright and false, greeting people at the door. Serena didn't look back. She climbed down the tree, dropped to the ground, and ran. The forest swallowed her whole. She'd spent her childhood in these woods, knew every deer path and hidden creek. But that was in daylight, in summer, when the world was soft and forgiving. Now, with the sun sinking behind the mountains and the temperature dropping, the forest was something else, something darker. She ran until her lungs burned, until the sounds of the wedding, music, laughter, the clink of glasses, faded into nothing, until there was only the crunch of leaves under her boots and the ragged gasp of her own breathing. When she finally stopped, she was deep in the old growth, where the trees grew so thick the sky disappeared. She leaned against a trunk, pressed her hand to the stitch in her side, and tried to think. She had maybe an hour before someone noticed she was gone. Another hour before Marcus realized she wasn't coming. After that, they'd come looking. She needed distance. Needed to get to the northern pass before they locked it down. Cross into the borderlands where her family's name meant nothing. She had cousins in the outer territories, distant, barely remembered, but they'd take her in. Maybe, if she could reach them. But the northern pass was 2 days on foot, and she was already losing light. Serena pushed off the tree, forced her legs to move. The path ahead was narrow, winding upward into the foothills. She followed it, 1 foot in front of the other, ignoring the cold seeping through her coat, the way her hands had started to shake. Behind her something howled. She froze. The sound echoed through the trees, low, wild, wrong. Not a dog, not a coyote. Wolf. Her heart kicked against her ribs. Wolves didn't come this far south, not anymore. They'd been hunted out decades ago, pushed back into the deep wilderness where civilization ended and the old laws still held. Another howl, closer. Serena started running again. The path twisted, climbed, narrowed into little more than a game trail. Her boots slipped on loose rocks. Branches whipped at her face, caught in her hair. She didn't slow down. Couldn't. Because behind her she could hear them now, the crash of bodies through underbrush, the pant of breath, the low growl that made every animal instinct in her body scream, "Run faster." She burst out of the trees onto a rocky overlook and stopped dead. In front of her, a sheer drop into darkness. Behind her, wolves. 3 of them stepped out of the shadows, massive and silver gray in the dying light. Their eyes glowed amber. Their teeth were bared. They moved like smoke spreading out, cutting off her escape. Serena backed up until her heels hit air. Her hand found the knife in her satchel. She pulled it out. a pathetic little thing, meant for cutting bread, and held it in front of her like it mattered. The lead wolf took a step forward, lowered its head, growled. She was going to die here, on a cliff in the middle of nowhere, torn apart by animals that shouldn't exist. And no one would ever know what happened to her. They'd think she got cold feet, that she was a coward who abandoned her family when they needed her most. The wolf lunged. Serena threw herself sideways, and someone grabbed her. A hand locked around her wrist, yanked her backward, spun her behind a wall of muscle and fury. She hit the ground hard, rocks biting into her palms. Above her, a man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black, put himself between her and the wolves. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. He looked at the wolves, and they stopped. All three of them, frozen mid-attack, ears flat against their skulls. The lead wolf made a sound, not a growl, something smaller, uncertain. The man said one word, "Go." His voice was low, calm, absolute. The wolves turned and melted back into the trees like they'd never been there at all. Serena lay on the ground, gasping, staring up at the stranger who had just saved her life. He was silhouetted against the last of the light, tall enough that she had to crane her neck to see his face. Dark hair, dark eyes, a jaw that looked like it had been carved from stone. He wore traveling clothes, well made but road-worn, and there was something about him that made the air feel thinner, heavier, dangerous. He looked down at her, expression unreadable. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, not trusting her voice. "Good." He extended a hand. "Get up. We need to move." Now." There was no room for argument in his tone. Serena grabbed his hand. It was warm, calloused, strong, and let him haul her to her feet. She barely had time to register the heat of his palm before he released her and started walking back toward the trees. "Wait!" She stumbled after him, satchel banging against her hip. "Where are you going?" "Away from the cliff." "I can't go back. I'm not taking you back." He didn't slow down. "But if you stay here, you'll freeze or fall or get eaten. Pick one." Serena hesitated for half a second, then followed. Because he was right. Because she had no other options. Because something in his voice told her he wasn't going to hurt her, even if he also wasn't going to coddle her. They walked in silence, his strides long and sure, hers stumbling to keep up. The forest closed around them again, darker now, full of sounds she didn't recognize. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they emerged onto a narrow road. A carriage waited there. It was black, unmarked, pulled by 4 horses that stamped impatiently in the cold. A driver sat up top, face hidden under a deep hood. The stranger opened the door, gestured inside. "Get in." Serena stared at him. "I don't even know who you are." "Someone who just kept you from being wolf food." He raised an eyebrow. "You want to stand here and debate it, or you want to get out of the cold?" She looked back at the forest, at the darkness creeping through the trees, at the path she'd been running down, which led nowhere she could survive. Then she looked at the carriage, at this man who had appeared out of nowhere, who commanded wolves with a single word, who was offering her shelter without asking for her name or her story. It was a terrible idea, reckless, stupid. She climbed into the carriage. He followed, settling onto the bench across from her. The door closed. The driver cracked the reins, and they started moving. Inside, it was warm. Too warm. Serena's hands were shaking again, but not from the cold. The adrenaline was draining out of her all at once, leaving her hollow and lightheaded. "Thank you," she managed. The stranger studied her in the dim light filtering through the curtained windows. His eyes were darker than she'd thought. Not brown, not black. Something in between. Old eyes. Tired eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. Serena hesitated. Giving her real name was dangerous. If word got out that she was here, with him, it would destroy what little reputation her family had left. But lying felt worse somehow, like an insult. "Serena," she said finally. "Serena Vale." His expression didn't change. "You're a long way from home, Serena Vale." "I know." "Running from something?" "Someone." He nodded slowly, like that made perfect sense. "And where exactly were you planning to run to? The cliff?" "The northern pass. I have family in the outer territories. 2 days on foot, in October." with wolves hunting and winter coming. He leaned back against the seat. You wouldn't have made it. I would have tried. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. I believe you. The carriage rattled over uneven ground. Serena pulled her coat tighter, suddenly aware of how close the space was, how alone they were, how little she knew about this man who had saved her. Who are you? She asked. He was quiet for a long moment, then, someone who was in the wrong place at the right time. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It's not. Serena felt a flicker of irritation cut through the exhaustion. You know my name. You know I'm running. The least you could do is… Kyle, he interrupted. My name is Kyle. The name hit her like cold water. Kale Draven. No, it couldn't be. The Kyle Draven didn't travel in unmarked carriages through the middle of nowhere. The Kyle Draven was a king, the Alpha King, ruler of the Northern Territories, commander of the wolf-born packs. The most powerful man in the borderlands, the most feared. They said he could kill a man with his bare hands, that he'd united the fractured clans through sheer force of will and violence, that he didn't negotiate, didn't compromise, didn't show mercy. They called him the Beast of the North. Serena looked at the man across from her, at his travel-worn clothes, his tired eyes, the way he sat like someone who'd been on the road too long. He didn't look like a king. He looked like a soldier, a wanderer. But when he met her gaze, she saw it, the weight, the power coiled beneath the surface like a spring under pressure. You're him, she whispered. You're the Alpha King. Kale Draven didn't deny it. And you're the runaway bride, he said quietly. Marcus Hale's bride, unless I miss my guess. Her stomach dropped. How did you… Your dress. He nodded toward her coat. You didn't change completely. There's pearls caught in your hair, and you smell like rose water in desperation. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I know a runner when I see one, Serena Vale. Takes one to know one. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know what to do with the fact that she was sitting across from the most dangerous man in the territories, and he was calling himself a runner. Are you going to turn me in? She asked. To who? Marcus Hale? Kyle shook his head. I don't work for Marcus Hale, but my family isn't my concern. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Here's what's going to happen, Serena Vale. You're going to ride with me to my estate in the north. You're going to stay there until you figure out what you actually want to do with your life. Not what your mother wants. Not what Marcus Hale wants. You. He paused. And in exchange, you're going to keep your mouth shut about who gave you shelter. Understood? Serena's mind was racing. This didn't make sense. Kings didn't rescue runaway brides. They didn't hide them. They didn't offer sanctuary without a price. Why? She asked. Why would you help me? Kale was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, almost sad. Because no one helped me when I ran, he said. And I remember what that felt like. The carriage rolled on into the night, carrying them both away from the lives they'd left behind, and toward something neither of them saw coming. They traveled for hours. Serena dozed fitfully, waking every time the carriage hit a rut or took a sharp turn. Each time, she found Kyle watching her with that same unreadable expression. He didn't sleep, didn't even seem tired, just sat there, silent and still, like a statue carved from shadow. When dawn finally broke, pale and cold, they were deep in the mountains. Serena pressed her face to the window, watching the landscape transform. The soft valleys and gentle forests of home had given way to something harsher. Raw. Pine trees clung to steep slopes. Snow dusted the highest peaks. The air tasted different here. Thinner, cleaner, wild. We're crossing into the territories, Kyle said. Serena turned to look at him. Your territories? Yes. She'd heard stories about the borderlands. Everyone had. It was where civilization ended and the old ways held. Where wolf-born clans lived by their own laws. Where strength mattered more than money. Where outsiders didn't last long. Her father had always spoken of it with a mixture of fear and disdain, like it was a place that had refused to evolve. But looking out at the wild beauty of it now, Serena felt something shift in her chest. Not fear, something else. Recognition. Do you regret it? Kael asked suddenly. She looked at him. Regret what? Running. Leaving your family. Serena thought about her mother's shaking hands, her father's bent shoulders, Daniel's quiet resignation, the life she'd been expected to live, silent, small, safe. No, she said. I regret not doing it sooner. Kael smiled. A real smile this time, brief and startling. Good. The carriage began to climb. The road grew steeper, narrower, until they were winding through a pass so tight Serena could reach out and touch the rock walls on either side. Then, suddenly, they emerged onto a plateau, and she saw it. Draven Keep. It wasn't a castle. It was a fortress. Built into the mountainside itself, all dark stone and sharp angles, with towers that looked like they'd been carved from the bones of the earth. Walls thick enough to withstand a siege. Windows like watchful eyes. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. The carriage rolled through gates that opened without anyone visible to open them, into a courtyard where people moved with purpose, soldiers, servants, others she couldn't identify. They all stopped when they saw the carriage, stopped and stared. Kael opened the door, stepped out, then offered Serena his hand. She took it. The moment her boots hit the ground, she felt every eye on her, felt the weight of their curiosity, their suspicion. A woman in men's clothes climbing out of the Alpha King's personal carriage, an outsider, an intruder. Kael didn't let go of her hand. He turned to address the crowd, his voice carrying across the courtyard. This is Serena Vale, he said. She's my guest. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. Silence. Then slowly, people went back to work. Kael led her inside. The keep was warmer than she'd expected. Fires burned in every hearth, thick rugs covered stone floors. But it was also stark. Functional. A place built for war, not comfort. They climbed stairs, walked down corridors lined with weapons and wolf pelts, past guards who nodded to Kael and pretended not to see Serena. Finally, he stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. This is yours, he said, pushing it open. The room inside was simple but clean. A bed, a fireplace, a window that looked out over the mountains. A basin of water sat on a stand in the corner. Fresh clothes were folded on the bed. Serena stepped inside, overwhelmed by the sudden rush of safety, of warmth, of space. Thank you, she whispered. Kael lingered in the doorway. Someone will bring you food, rest. We'll talk later. He started to leave, then paused. Serena. She turned. You're safe here, he said quietly. Whatever you're running from, whoever you're running from, they can't touch you in my house. I give you my word. And then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving Serena alone for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. She stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. The wedding, the run, the wolves. Kael. Slowly, carefully, she sank onto the bed. And for the first time since she could remember, Serena Vale let herself cry. Not from fear or grief or despair, but from relief. She was free. Whatever came next, whatever price she'd have to pay for this freedom, she'd deal with it. But right now, in this moment, she was free. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and silent, covering the mountains in white. And deep in the heart of the keep, Kael Draven stood at his window, watching the storm come in, and wondered what the hell he'd just done. Serena woke to voices arguing outside her door. She sat up fast, heart hammering, disoriented by the unfamiliar room and the pale light slanting through the window. For a confused moment, she thought she was back home, that the wedding was still ahead of her, that none of it had happened. Then she saw the borrowed clothes on the chair, the stone walls, the mountains through the glass. Right, she'd run. She was in Kael Draven's fortress, and someone was very angry about it. Can't just bring outsiders into the keep without consulting the council. A woman's voice, sharp with authority. I don't need the council's permission. Kael, calm, immovable. And she's not going anywhere. She's a liability. You don't know her. You don't know what she's running from.
I know enough. Do you?
Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you picked up a stray and brought her home without thinking through the consequences. Serena pressed her ear closer to the door, pulse racing. Watch your tone, Mira. Or what? You'll remind me you're the Alpha King? The woman, Mira, laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've known you since you were a pup, Cale Draven. I changed your diapers. So don't pull rank on me when I'm trying to keep you from making a mistake. A long silence. Then Cale's voice, lower. She needed help. And you needed to be the one to give it? There are 100 places she could have gone. She didn't have time to find them. She had wolves on her heels and a cliff at her back. I made a choice. A choice that affects all of us. Mira's footsteps moved closer to the door. The girl is Vale's daughter, Edwin Vale. Do you have any idea what kind of attention that's going to bring down on us when her family realizes she's here? Serena's breath caught. They knew who she was. Of course they did. Cale had known from the beginning. Let them come, Cale said quietly. Let them try. More silence. Then Mira sighed, long and frustrated. You're going to regret this. Probably. Footsteps retreated down the hall. A door slammed somewhere in the distance. Serena waited, barely breathing, until she heard Kyle walk away too. She sat back on the bed, processing. So the people here didn't want her. Thought she was a problem. A mistake. Fine. She'd spent her whole life being called those things. At least here, she'd chosen to be one. She washed her face in the basin, changed into the clothes that had been left for her, plain wool pants, a shirt that was too big, a leather vest that actually fit. Practical. Warm. Nothing like the suffocating silk she'd left behind. When she finally worked up the courage to leave the room, the hallway was empty. She followed the sound of voices down stone corridors, through passageways lit by torches that never seemed to need replacing. The keep was a maze, but it had a logic to it. Everything built for defense, every corner positioned to give advantage in a fight. She found the main hall by accident. It was massive. High ceilings supported by rough-hewn beams. A fireplace big enough to roast a whole pig. Long tables where people sat eating breakfast. Bread, cheese, dried meat. Something that smelled like venison stew. They looked up when she entered, and the conversation died. Serena stood in the doorway, very aware that she was an outsider. That every eye in the room was measuring her, judging her, finding her wanting. A woman at the nearest table leaned toward her neighbor. That's her, the runaway. Whispers spread like fire. Serena's hands curled into fists. She'd faced worse than gossip. She could handle this. She walked to the serving table, took a bowl of stew and a chunk of bread, and found an empty seat at the far end of one of the long tables. Ate without looking up, without acknowledging the stares. Someone sat down across from her. Serena glanced up and found herself looking at a girl around her age, maybe younger. Dark hair cropped short, freckles across her nose, eyes the color of pine bark. She was grinning. You've got guts, the girl said. I'll give you that. Serena blinked. What? Walking in here like you own the place. Half the people in this room wanted to drag you back to wherever you came from. The other half wanted to see what you'd do. She stuck out a hand. I'm Lena, Mira's daughter. Which means I'm supposed to hate you on principle, but honestly, I think you're kind of amazing. Serena stared at the hand, then shook it carefully. Serena. I know. Everyone knows. Lena tore off a piece of bread, shoved it in her mouth. So what's the story? You really leave your fiancé at the altar? Technically before the altar. Lena's grin widened. Even better, what did he do to make you run? Serena hesitated, but there was something disarming about Lena, a straightforwardness that made lying feel stupid. He was going to destroy my family from the inside once we were married. Turn my father's company into his own. I'd have been a trophy, a signature on a contract. And you said no. I said no. Lena leaned back, studying her with open curiosity. You know people are saying you seduced the king, right? That you threw yourself at him to get protection. Heat flooded Serena's face. That's not... I didn't... Relax. I don't believe it. Kyle doesn't get seduced. Trust me. Half the women in the territories have tried. She paused. So what actually happened? Serena looked around the hall. Everyone was pretending not to listen. but she could feel their attention like weight on her skin. Wolves chased me to a cliff. He happened to be there. He helped. Wolves. Lena's expression shifted, something harder moving behind her eyes. Pack wolves or ferals? I don't know. Big, silver. They stopped when he told them to. Pack wolves then. Probably his. At Serena's shocked look, Lena laughed. You really don't know anything about the territories, do you? I know it's dangerous. I know outsiders don't last long. True. But you're not an outsider anymore. You're under Kael's protection. That makes you untouchable. Lena's smile faded a little. It also makes you a target. People are going to test you. See if you're worth the trouble he's taking on by keeping you here. I didn't ask him to. Doesn't matter. He did it anyway, which means you're his responsibility now, whether you like it or not. Lena stood, picking up her bowl. Come on, if you're going to survive here, you need to learn how things work. Serena followed her out of the hall, acutely aware of the eyes tracking their every move. The keep was even bigger than she'd realized. Lena led her through training yards where men and women sparred with real weapons, through workshops where blacksmiths hammered iron and leatherworkers stitched armor, through storage rooms stacked with enough supplies to survive a siege. Everything was efficient, organized, built to last. We're not just a pack, Lena explained as they walked. We're an alliance. 15 clans, all sworn to Kael. He united us 10 years ago when the territories were tearing themselves apart. Before him, it was just blood feuds and border wars. Now we have something close to peace. Close to? There are always people who don't like change, who think the old ways were better. Lena shrugged. But Kael's strong enough to hold it together, so far. They climbed stairs to a battlement that overlooked the valley below. From here, Serena could see for miles. Mountains stacked on mountains, forests stretching to the horizon, rivers cutting silver lines through the wilderness. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, raw and unforgiving and completely indifferent to human survival. Why did he help me? Serena asked quietly. Lena was silent for a moment. You'd have to ask him. But if I had to guess, I think you reminded him of someone. Who? Himself. Before he became this. Lena gestured at the keep, the valley, everything. He was an outsider once too. Ran from a life he didn't want, nearly died doing it. Someone gave him a chance when they didn't have to. Maybe he's paying it forward. Serena thought about the man who'd pulled her away from the cliff. The exhaustion in his eyes. The way he'd said, I remember what that felt like. What happened to him? She asked. Before? That's his story to tell, not mine. Lena turned to face her. But I'll tell you this. People here respect him because he's strong, yeah, but also because he's fair. He doesn't ask anything of us he wouldn't do himself. And when he gives his word, he keeps it. So if he said you're safe here, you are. A bell rang somewhere in the keep. Lena straightened. Training bell. I have to go. You should too. I don't know how to fight. Then you're going to learn, Lena grinned. Welcome to the territories, Serena Vale. Hope you're tougher than you look. She disappeared down the stairs, leaving Serena alone on the battlement with the wind and the view and the slowly sinking realization that she'd traded one cage for another. Except this time, the cage had teeth. The training yard was chaos. 50 people, maybe more, paired off and fighting. Not sparring, fighting. Fists and feet and practice weapons that still looked like they could crack bone. Blood on the dirt. The sound of bodies hitting ground. A woman with gray streaks in her hair circled the pairs, shouting corrections and insults with equal enthusiasm. Mira. Had to be. She had Lena's eyes and a presence that made grown men straighten their spines when she walked past. Serena hung back near the edge of the yard, trying to stay invisible. It didn't work. You. Mira pointed at her without looking. Vale's daughter, get in here. Every head turned. Serena's stomach dropped. I don't care. You want to stay in the keep? You train. Everyone trains, no exceptions. Mira's gaze was flat, unimpressed. Lena, you take her. Lena jogged over, still grinning like this was the best entertainment she'd had all week. She tossed Serena a practice staff, a long wooden pole, smooth from use. Try not to die. That's your advice? Yep. Lena's first strike came fast. Serena barely got her staff up in time to block. The impact jarred her arms, sent her stumbling back. Lena didn't give her time to recover. She pressed forward, strikes coming in a fluid combination, high, low, sweep, each one forcing Serena to react on instinct she didn't have. Don't think, Lena said, breathing easy while Serena gasped. Just move. Easy for her to say. Serena had never held a weapon in her life, had been taught that violence was beneath her, that ladies didn't fight. She was soft, useless. The staff cracked against her ribs. Pain exploded through her side. She dropped to one knee, wheezing. Lena lowered her weapon. You okay? Fine, Serena gritted out. She stood, ignoring the way her ribs screamed, raised her staff. Again. Something shifted in Lena's expression. Respect, maybe. She nodded. Again. They went again, and again, and again. Each time, Serena lasted a little longer before getting knocked down. Each time, she got back up. By the end of the session, she was covered in bruises and couldn't lift her arms above her shoulders. But she was still standing. Mira walked past, gave her a long, evaluating look. You're slow, weak, but you've got spine. We'll see if that's enough. She moved on. Serena collapsed onto a bench, breathing hard. Lena dropped down beside her, offered a water skin. Not bad for a first-timer. I'm terrible. Yeah, but you didn't quit. Lena took a long drink. That matters here. We don't care where you come from or who your family is. We care if you can hold your own when it matters. Can I? Not yet, but you will. Serena looked across the yard at the other fighters. They were all stronger than her, faster, more skilled. Most of them had probably been training since they could walk. Why do you do this? She asked. All of you. The constant fighting, the training. What's the point? Lena's smile faded. Because the world outside doesn't play fair. Because there are people who want what we have and aren't afraid to take it by force. We train so we can protect what's ours. So we never have to rely on someone else to save us. She looked at Serena. You ran from your old life because you couldn't fight back. Here, we make sure that never happens. The words hit harder than any staff strike. Because Lena was right. Serena had run because she had no other choice. No power, no voice. She'd been a piece on someone else's board, moved around to serve purposes that weren't hers. But here, in this harsh place with its brutal honesty, she could be something else, if she was willing to bleed for it. Cale found her that evening in the library. She hadn't meant to end up there, had just been wandering the keep, too sore to train, too restless to stay in her room. But when she'd pushed open a heavy door and found herself surrounded by books, thousands of them, floor to ceiling, the smell of paper and leather and knowledge, she'd felt something in her chest ease. She was curled in a chair by the fire, reading about the history of the territories, when he walked in. You're a long way from the training yard, he said. She looked up. He was still dressed for the road, dusty boots, dark coat, hair slightly disheveled like he'd been riding. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. I needed a break from being terrible at fighting, she said. His mouth curved. Mira said you didn't quit. That's not terrible. That's promising. Mira also said I'm slow and weak. You are. Right now. He crossed to the shelves, ran his fingers along the spines. But slow and weak can be fixed. Cowardice can't. Serena closed the book. Is that what you were? Before you became king, slow and weak. Kyle pulled a volume from the shelf, something old, leather-bound, and turned to face her. I was a lot of things. None of them good. Lena said you ran too, from your old life. Lena talks too much. But there was no heat in it. He sat in the chair across from hers, the book forgotten in his lap. What else did she tell you? That you united the clans. That people respect you because you're fair. That you keep your word. All true. She didn't tell me what you were running from. Kyle was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost tired. I was supposed to be someone's weapon, born into a line that bred for strength, for dominance. My father saw me as a tool to expand his territory. My mother saw me as a disappointment because I asked questions instead of just obeying. He paused. When I was 16, they tried to force me into a bond with someone I didn't choose, someone who would make our bloodline stronger, more powerful. What did you do? I killed 3 guards, stole a horse, and rode into the wilderness with nothing but the clothes on my back. He looked at her. I almost died that first winter. Would have, if someone hadn't found me half frozen and taught me how to survive. Serena's chest tightened. Who? An old woman who lived alone in the deep woods. She didn't care about bloodlines or power. She just saw a stupid kid who needed help. He smiled, but it was sad. She taught me everything. How to hunt, how to fight, how to lead. And when I was ready, she sent me back into the world and told me to do better than the people who'd raised me. Did you? I'm trying. He set the book aside, leaned forward. The point is, I understand what it's like to run, to choose the unknown over a life that's killing you. So when I found you on that cliff, I didn't see a stranger. I saw someone making the same choice I did. Serena swallowed hard. Your people don't want me here. Some of them don't. They'll come around. What if they don't? Then they'll learn to live with it. His gaze was steady, absolute. You're under my protection, Serena. That's not negotiable. She wanted to ask why. Why he cared. Why he'd risk his people's trust for someone he'd just met. But something in his expression told her he wouldn't answer, or couldn't. Instead, she asked, what happens if my family comes looking for me? Do you want to see them? She thought about her mother's shaking hands, her father's broken pride, Daniel's quiet acceptance of a future he didn't choose. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me wants to fix it, to go back and make it right somehow. But I can't do that by marrying Marcus, and I don't know what else I can give them. Maybe you don't have to give them anything. Maybe they have to figure it out themselves. That feels cruel. Crueler than sacrificing yourself? Kael shook his head. You can't save people who don't want to save themselves, Serena. Believe me, I've tried. The fire crackled. Outside, night had fallen completely, turning the windows into mirrors. Thank you, Serena said quietly. For this, for giving me space to figure things out. Kael stood. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what happens when people figure out you're here. He left, taking the warmth of his presence with him. Serena sat alone in the library, watching the fire burn down to embers, and wondered what storm was coming. She didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, a rider arrived at the gates. Serena was in the training yard, getting knocked down by Lena for the 100th time, when the alarm bell rang. Everyone stopped, weapons lowered, heads turned toward the keep's main entrance. Mira appeared on the wall above, squinting into the distance. Then she swore, loud and creative. What is it? Lena called. Veil colors, blue and silver. Mira's jaw was tight. Someone's come looking for the runaway. Serena's blood went cold. The rider approached slowly, hands visible, no weapons drawn. A smart move when approaching a fortress full of wolfborn. As they got closer, Serena recognized the horse, the riding cloak, her brother. Daniel Vale dismounted at the gates, looking small and out of place among the armed guards. He was 17, too thin, with their father's dark hair and their mother's worried eyes. He looked exhausted. Kael appeared on the wall beside Mira. Let him through. The gates opened. Daniel walked into the courtyard, looking around with barely concealed fear. His gaze found Serena, and his whole face crumpled with relief. Serena, thank the... He caught himself, ran forward, pulled her into a hug. You're alive. You're actually alive. She hugged him back, throat tight. Of course I'm alive. What did you think? We didn't know. You just disappeared. Mother's been... He pulled back, looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. We thought something terrible happened to you. Guilt twisted in Serena's chest. She'd been so focused on escaping, on surviving, she hadn't thought about what her disappearance would do to them. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to worry you. I couldn't go through with it. I know. Daniel glanced around at the guards, at Kael watching from above. But you have to come home. Marcus is furious. He's calling it a breach of contract. He's threatening to foreclose on everything if you don't come back and marry him. Serena's hands clenched. Of course he is. Mother's sick, really sick. The stress, she collapsed 2 days ago. The doctor says if things don't stabilize, she might not. His voice cracked. Please, Serena. I know you were scared. I know Marcus is awful, but we need you. The words landed like stones. Her mother was sick. Because of her. Because she'd run. Daniel, I'm not asking you to marry him. Just come home. Talk to them. We'll figure something else out. Together. He grabbed her hands. Please. Serena looked up at Kyle. He was watching her with that unreadable expression, arms crossed, waiting. Give me a minute, she said to Daniel. I need to talk to someone. She climbed the stairs to the wall, feeling everyone's eyes on her. When she reached Kyle, he turned to face her, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Anger. Tightly controlled, but there. You can't go back, he said quietly. My mother is sick. That's not your fault, isn't it? I ran. I left them to deal with the consequences. The consequences of their choices. Not yours. His jaw was tight. If you go back now, they'll trap you. Marcus will find a way to force the marriage. And even if he doesn't, your family will guilt you into staying, into fixing their problems by sacrificing yourself. You don't know that. I know exactly that, because I've seen it happen 100 times. He stepped closer, voice low and fierce. You think you owe them this? You think love means setting yourself on fire to keep them warm, but it doesn't. It never did. She's my mother, Kyle, and she's using that against you. The words hit like a slap. Serena recoiled. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, I can't stop you from leaving. If you want to go back, I'll let you, but I need you to understand what you're choosing, not just for them, for yourself. So Serena looked down at her brother, waiting in the courtyard. He looked so young, so scared. Then she looked at the training yard, at Lena, who'd taught her to fight, at Mira, who'd pushed her to be stronger, at this place that had given her space to breathe for the first time in her life. I have to see her, she said finally, even if it's just to say goodbye. Kyle was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded, sharp and resigned. I'll take you myself, tomorrow, but you're coming back. It wasn't a question, it was an order, and Serena realized with a strange mix of relief and terror that she didn't want to argue. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her mother, about the way Margaret's hands had shaken while she sewed pearls onto a wedding dress, about Daniel's cracked voice saying she might not make it, about Kyle's words. She's using that against you. Was she? Or was Serena just looking for an excuse to avoid responsibility? She got up, wrapped herself in a borrowed cloak, and went walking through the keep. It was late enough that the halls were mostly empty, just a few guards at their posts. She found herself on the battlements again, looking out at the mountains under starlight. Can't sleep either? She turned. Kale stood a few feet away, dressed in just a shirt and pants, no coat despite the cold. He looked tired, human. Too much in my head, she admitted. He came to stand beside her at the wall. They were quiet for a while, watching the night. I meant what I said earlier, he said finally, about your family using guilt. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I know. But I also understand why you need to see them, why you need to know they're okay. He paused. Just don't let them convince you that their survival depends on your suffering, because it doesn't. Serena pulled the cloak tighter. What if I can't help them? What if I go back and there's nothing I can do? Then you tried. That's more than most people get. She looked at him, really looked at him, this man who'd saved her life without asking for anything in return, who'd given her shelter and protection and space to figure out who she wanted to be. Why do you care? She asked softly. About what happens to me. You barely know me. Kyle was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then, because when I ran, no one cared. No one asked if I was okay or what I needed. They just let me disappear. And it took me years to realize that wasn't strength. It was abandonment. He met her eyes. I don't want that for you. Something shifted in Serena's chest, something warm and terrifying. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that changed his whole face. "Come on, you need sleep. Tomorrow's going to be rough." They walked back inside together, and Serena realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Not of her family, not of Marcus, not even of the uncertain future stretching out ahead. Because for the first time in her life, she had someone standing beside her who didn't want to use her, just someone who wanted her to be free. And that changed everything. They left at dawn, when the sky was still bruised purple, and the mountains looked like teeth against the horizon. Kael rode beside her, silent and watchful. Daniel had gone ahead the night before to tell their family Serena was coming. 4 of Kael's guards flanked them, 2 in front, 2 behind, all armed, all scanning the road like they expected an ambush at any moment. Maybe they did. Serena hadn't been on a horse in months. Her thighs were already aching, her back stiff from the rigid posture she couldn't quite shake. Ladies' training. Sit straight, chin up, hands gentle on the reins. She caught herself and forced her shoulders to relax. "You're thinking too hard," Kael said. She glanced at him. He rode like he'd been born in the saddle, loose and easy, moving with the horse instead of against it. Of course he did. "I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say to them." "How about the truth?" "Which part? That I ran away and have no intention of coming back? That I've been living in a fortress with the Alpha King while they thought I was dead?" She shook her head. "They'll think I've lost my mind." "Have you?" "Maybe." She looked at the road ahead, winding down through pine forests toward the valley where Ashford lay like a cluster of toys. "A month ago, I would have done anything to keep my family safe. Now I'm riding home with an army at my back, and I don't even know if I want to save them anymore." Kael was quiet for a moment. "Wanting to save yourself doesn't make you a bad person, Serena." "Then why does it feel like betrayal?" He didn't answer. Maybe because there wasn't a good answer. Maybe because he knew the feeling too well. They rode in silence for another hour, descending into warmer air, into country that felt too soft after the harsh beauty of the mountains. Farms appeared, scattered at first, then closer together. Stone walls divided fields. Sheep grazed. A child waved from a doorway, then ducked inside when she saw the armed riders. Word would spread fast. The Alpha King was riding through the lowlands. With the Veil girl, people would talk. Good. Let them. By the time they reached Ashford proper, the streets were lined with onlookers. Serena kept her chin up, her gaze forward, refusing to acknowledge the whispers, the pointing fingers. She'd been a scandal before. She could be one again. The Veil House sat on the edge of town, a sprawling manor that had seen better days. The gardens were overgrown, paint peeled from the shutters. The fountain in the courtyard had been dry for 2 years. Her father stood on the front steps. Edwin Vale looked older than she remembered, thinner. The lines around his mouth had deepened into crevices. He wore his good suit, the one he saved for business meetings, but it hung loose on his frame. When he saw her, something in his face cracked open. Relief, anger, shame, all of it tangled together. Serena dismounted. Kael did the same, staying close but not crowding. His guards positioned themselves at strategic points around the courtyard, not threatening, just present. A reminder. "Serena." Her father's voice shook. "You're home." "I'm visiting," she corrected quietly. He flinched, nodded. "Of course. Yes. Come inside. Your mother will want to see you." They climbed the steps together. Kael's hand brushed her lower back, a brief touch, steadying, and then they were through the door into the house she'd grown up in. It smelled the same. Lavender and old wood and her mother's rosewater. But it felt smaller, shabbier, like a costume she'd outgrown. Margaret Vale was in the sitting room, propped up on the sofa with blankets tucked around her. She looked fragile, skin pale, hands trembling even in sleep. Daniel sat beside her, holding one of those hands like he was afraid she'd slip away if he let go. He looked up when they entered. "She's been sleeping most of the day. Doctor says it's the strain on her heart." Serena crossed to the sofa, knelt beside it. Up close, her mother looked worse. Bruises under her eyes, lips cracked, breathing shallow and uneven. "Mom?" she whispered. Margaret's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused, like she couldn't place where she was. Then she focused on Serena's face and her whole expression crumbled. "You're here," she breathed. "You're really here. I was so afraid." "I'm okay. I'm safe. Thank heaven." Margaret tried to sit up, winced, fell back. "When you disappeared, I thought the worst things. Wolves, bandits. I thought we'd lost you." Guilt twisted in Serena's stomach. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. Where have you been?" Serena hesitated, glanced back at Kyle, who stood near the door watching with that unreadable expression. "Somewhere safe, with someone who helped me." Margaret's gaze followed hers, landed on Kyle. Her eyes widened. "Is that—" "Kyle Draven," Edwin said quietly. "The Alpha King. He's been sheltering our daughter." The temperature in the room dropped. Margaret's face went very still. "Sheltering?" "He gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go," Serena said quickly. "He's been kind, generous. He didn't have to help me, but he did." "And what does he want in return?" her mother asked, voice sharp despite her weakness. "Nothing. He wants nothing." "Everyone wants something, Serena." Margaret's hands tightened on the blanket. "Men like him don't help girls like you out of kindness. They help because they see opportunity." Heat flashed through Serena's chest. "You don't know him." "I know his reputation. Everyone does. The Beast of the North. The man who carved out a kingdom with blood and violence." Margaret looked at Kyle directly now, and there was steel in her voice despite how frail she looked. "What game are you playing with my daughter?" Kyle stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was calm, even. "No game, Mrs. Vale. Your daughter needed help. I provided it. Nothing more. And when you're done with her, when she's no longer useful—" "Mother, she stays or goes as she chooses," Kyle said. "I don't keep people against their will." "How noble." Edwin's voice was bitter. "And meanwhile, what happens to us? To this family you've stolen her from?" Serena stood, anger burning hot now. "He didn't steal me. I left. Because you were going to marry me off to a man who would have destroyed everything Father built just to own it. Well, we were trying to save what we could." "By selling me!" The words burst out louder than she intended. "You were going to trade me like property, like I was just another asset you could liquidate." Edwin's face went red. "We had no choice. Marcus was going to foreclose. There's always a choice. You just didn't want to make the hard one." Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Margaret pressed a hand to her chest, breathing hard. Daniel looked between them all like he wished he could disappear. Edwin just stared at Serena like she'd become a stranger. Finally, her mother spoke, very quietly. "What do you want from us, Serena?" "I don't know. I came because Daniel said you were sick, because I was worried." She swallowed hard. "But I'm not coming back. I'm not marrying Marcus. And you're going to have to figure out how to survive without using me to do it." "Then we'll lose everything," Edwin's voice broke. "The house, the business, our name, everything your grandfather built, everything I tried to hold on to, it'll be gone." "Then let it go." Her father stared at her like she'd slapped him. "Let it go," Serena repeated, stronger now. "Stop trying to save something that's already dead. Sell the house, pay off the debts, start over. I'll help however I can. Money, connections, whatever you need. But I won't sacrifice myself to preserve a legacy that doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter?" Edwin took a step toward her, hands shaking. "That legacy is your birthright, your history. How dare you stand there and—" "Edwin," Margaret's voice cut through his anger. "Stop!" He turned to her, mouth open to argue. "Stop," she said again, softer. "Look at her." Edwin looked, really looked, at his daughter standing straight-backed and clear-eyed in front of him. At the strength in her stance, the calluses on her hands, the way she didn't flinch under his anger. "She's not our little girl anymore," Margaret whispered. "We lost her the moment we decided she wasn't worth more than our debts." The words hung in the air like smoke. Edwin's face crumpled. He sat down heavily in the nearest chair, put his head in his hands. "What have I done?" No one answered. Serena felt something crack open in her chest, not her heart breaking, but something harder giving way. Forgiveness, maybe. Or just exhaustion. She crossed to her father, knelt in front of him. "You did what you thought you had to do," she said quietly. "But so did I."
He looked up at her with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Serena. I should have found another way. I should have protected you better. Yeah, you should have. She took his hand. But I'm protecting myself now. A knock at the door interrupted whatever Edwin was going to say. Daniel stood, crossed to answer it.
Voices drifted in from the hall, Daniel's uncertain, and another one Serena recognized with a jolt of cold fear. Marcus Hale. He walked into the sitting room like he owned it. Probably thought he did. Blonde hair perfect, suit tailored, smile sharp as broken glass. His gaze swept the room, landed on Serena. There you are, he said pleasantly. We've all been so worried. Serena stood slowly. Marcus, what are you doing here? Checking on my fiancée, of course. He looked at Kyle, and something dangerous flickered behind his eyes. And meeting the man who's been keeping her. How generous of you, King Draven, to shelter my bride. She's not your bride, Kyle said quietly. Not yet, but soon. Marcus smiled at Serena. Darling, I understand you got cold feet. It happens. But you've had your little adventure, and now it's time to come home and fulfill your obligations. I'm not marrying you. Of course you are. We have a contract. A contract I never signed. Your father signed it. That's legally binding. Marcus pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket, held it up. This agreement states that in exchange for debt forgiveness, Edwin Vale's daughter will marry me within 30 days of the signing date. That was 4 weeks ago, which means, he checked his watch, you have 6 days left. Edwin looked sick. Marcus, please, be reasonable. She doesn't want, I don't care what she wants. I care about what was promised. Marcus's smile never wavered. Either she marries me by the deadline, or I foreclose on everything. The house, the land, the business, all of it. Your choice, Edwin. Serena felt rage burn white-hot through her veins. You can't force me to marry you. Can I? You're an adult, yes. But your family isn't, and I own their debts, which means I own their future. He stepped closer. Unless you'd like to watch them lose everything? Watch your mother get evicted from her home while she's too sick to stand? Watch your father go to debtor's prison? Your brother drop out of school? You bastard! I'm a businessman. There's a difference. He reached for her hand. She yanked it away. Don't touch me. Something cold moved behind Marcus's eyes. I've been patient with you, Serena. More patient than you deserve. But my patience has limits. Kyle moved then, fast. He put himself between Serena and Marcus, and his voice when he spoke was very, very quiet. You need to leave. Now. Marcus looked him up and down, unimpressed. This is a private family matter, King Draven. It doesn't concern you. It concerns me when you threaten someone under my protection. Protection, Marcus laughed. Is that what you're calling it? How long did it take, Serena? How long before you warmed his bed in exchange for shelter? Kyle's fist caught Marcus across the jaw before anyone could react. Marcus went down hard, hit the floor, blood spraying from his split lip. He looked up at Kyle with pure hatred burning in his eyes. You'll regret that, he spat. Doubt it. Kyle flexed his hand. Get out and don't come back. Marcus stood slowly, wiping blood from his mouth. 6 days, Serena. Think about what you're choosing. Think about who's going to suffer when you make the wrong decision. He walked out. The front door slammed. Silence fell like a hammer. Serena's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists, trying to steady herself, trying to think. 6 days. Marcus had given her 6 days. I need air, she said. She walked out onto the back terrace, into the afternoon light. The garden spread below her, wild and untended. She could see the oak tree she used to climb. The fountain where she'd played as a child. The gate she'd run through a month ago. Everything looked different now, smaller, less important. Kale followed her out. Didn't say anything, just stood beside her, present and solid and steady. He's going to destroy them, Serena said quietly. Whether I marry him or not, he'll find a way. Probably. So what do I do? Kyle turned to face her. What do you want to do? Serena closed her eyes. Thought about the girl she'd been a month ago, scared, trapped, powerless. Thought about the person she was becoming, stronger, braver. Free. Thought about Marcus's smug smile, his casual cruelty, the way he thought he could buy her like livestock. She opened her eyes. I want to fight. Then fight. How? He has the law on his side. He has money, contracts, power. And you have me. Kale's gaze was steady, certain. If you want to fight him, we fight him, together. Something fierce and bright ignited in Serena's chest. You do that? Risk your position, your reputation, for my family's mess? I'd do it for you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Serena stared at him. This man who'd saved her, sheltered her, asked for nothing in return. This king who looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth fighting for. I have an idea, she said slowly, but it's risky, and it'll make you a target. I'm already a target. Tell me. She took a breath. Let it out. What if we made Marcus's worst accusation true? Kael frowned. I don't follow. He thinks I'm with you, that I ran to you, that you've been keeping me. What if we turned that into a weapon? She met his eyes. What if you courted me? Publicly. Officially. Made it clear that I'm not available because I'm with someone more powerful than him. Understanding dawned in Kael's expression. You want to use me as a shield. More than a shield. A declaration. If Marcus thinks I'm courting the Alpha King, he can't touch me without starting a war. And he's not stupid enough to fight you. He might be. Then that's his problem. Serena's hands were steady now. Sure. I'm not asking you to actually marry me, just to make people think you're considering it, long enough for my family to get out from under Marcus's thumb. After that, we can end it quietly. Say it didn't work out. Kael studied her for a long moment. You're asking me to lie to your family, to mine, to everyone. I'm asking you to help me save the people I love without destroying myself in the process. If that requires some creative truth-telling, then yes. She stepped closer. Will you do it? He should have said no, should have told her it was too risky, too complicated, too public, should have reminded her that lies had a way of spiraling out of control. Instead, he smiled, sharp and dangerous, and exactly what she needed. Let's make them regret underestimating you, he said. They told her family that night. Edwin looked like he'd been hit with a brick. Margaret went pale. Daniel just stared, mouth open. You're courting the Alpha King, Edwin repeated slowly, like the words didn't make sense. He's expressed interest, Serena said, keeping her voice calm, confident. We've been spending time together, getting to know each other. It's developed into something more. In a month? Sometimes that's all it takes. She looked at Kael, who stood beside her with his arms crossed, expression neutral. Right? Right, he agreed smoothly. When you know, you know. Margaret pressed her fingers to her temples. This is insane. You barely know him. You can't just... Why not? You were ready to marry me off to Marcus after a 3-month engagement. At least Kael isn't trying to steal our business. Marcus is offering security. Marcus is offering servitude. Serena kept her voice level. Kael is offering partnership. There's a difference. Is he? Edwin looked at Kael directly. What exactly are you offering my daughter? Kael met his gaze without flinching. Respect, safety, a choice in her own future. Everything you should have given her and didn't. Edwin's jaw tightened. That's not fair. Neither is selling your child to pay your debts. The room fell silent. Finally, Margaret spoke, her voice thin and tired. If you're doing this to punish us, Serena, I'm doing this to survive. There's a difference. Serena looked at each of them in turn. Marcus gave us 6 days. I'm giving you an alternative. If I'm publicly courting Kael, Marcus can't force the marriage without looking like a fool. It buys us time to find another solution. And what happens when Marcus realizes it's a ruse? Edwin asked. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Daniel, who'd been quiet this whole time, finally spoke. Do you actually like him? Serena looked at Kael, at the man who'd pulled her off a cliff and given her space to find her spine, who'd taught her to fight and told her she was worth fighting for. Yeah, she said softly. I do. Something shifted in Kael's expression, just for a moment. Then it was gone, locked back behind that careful control. It's settled then, Kael said. I'll make the announcement tomorrow, in town, where everyone can hear it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. He looked at Edwin. You'll have time to restructure your debts, find new investors, whatever you need, but Serena stays with me. Non-negotiable. Edwin opened his mouth to argue, closed it, nodded slowly. All right. If this is what she wants. It is, Serena said firmly. They left soon after. Kael's guards formed up around them as they mounted their horses. Serena glanced back once at the house where she'd grown up. Her mother stood in the window, watching. Their eyes met. Margaret raised one hand, not quite a wave, not quite a blessing, just an acknowledgement. Serena turned away. They were halfway back to the keep when Kael spoke. You know this is going to get complicated. I know. Marcus won't let this go. He'll come after you, after me. He'll look for any weakness he can exploit. Let him try. Kael glanced at her. You've changed. Good. They rode in silence for a while. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of amber and blood, beautiful and harsh at the same time. Serena, Kael said quietly, earlier, when your brother asked if you liked me, did you mean that? She could have lied, should have probably, kept things simple and clean between them, but she was so tired of lying. Yeah, she said, I meant it. He didn't respond, just nodded once, expression unreadable. But his hand, when it brushed hers on the reins, lingered a moment longer than necessary. Marcus struck 3 days later. Serena was in the training yard sparring with Lena when the alarm bell rang. Not the warning bell, the attack bell. The sound that meant someone was coming fast and armed. Everyone stopped, weapons came up. Guards ran for their positions. Kael appeared on the wall, scanning the road. His face went hard. Riders, 20 of them, hail colors. Serena's blood went cold. She dropped her practice staff, ran for the wall, climbed the stairs 2 at a time until she could see. Marcus led them. He sat tall on a black horse, surrounded by hired swords, mercenaries by the look of them, rough men with scarred faces and weapons that had seen real use. They rode like they owned the road. Open the gates, Marcus called when they reached the keep. I'm here for my fiancée. Kael's voice carried down, calm and absolute. You don't have a fiancé here. Really? Because I have a signed contract that says otherwise. Marcus held up the paper. Legal and binding. Serena Vale is mine. Serena Vale is courting me. Convenient timing, Marcus smiled. Or is it? See, I've been asking around, talking to people, and you know what I found? No one saw you together before she ran. No letters, no visits, no courtship. He paused. Just a runaway bride and a king who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Murmurs rippled through the crowd gathering in the courtyard. Serena felt eyes turning toward her, suspicious, calculating. Sounds to me like someone's lying, Marcus continued. Like maybe the good king here is just helping a frightened girl avoid her obligations, which is noble, sure, but it doesn't change the law. The law, Kael said quietly, doesn't give you the right to force a woman into marriage. It gives me the right to collect on debts, and the Vale family owes me everything. Marcus's smile sharpened. So here's my offer. Serena comes with me now, peacefully, and we'll forget this whole embarrassing charade, or I take this to the magistrate, and we settle it in court. Your choice. Serena stepped forward. I'm not going anywhere with you. Marcus's gaze found her on the wall. Sweetheart, be reasonable. Don't call me that. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just come down. We'll go home. Get married like we planned. Your family will be safe, and we can all move on. I'd rather die. Something dangerous flashed in Marcus's eyes. That can be arranged. Kael moved faster than thought. He vaulted over the wall, landed in a crouch in the courtyard, and straightened to his full height. The temperature seemed to drop. Did you just threaten her life? He asked softly. Marcus's mercenaries shifted, hands moving to weapons. Marcus himself looked less certain but held his ground. I'm simply stating facts. Accidents happen, especially to young women traveling alone in dangerous territory. She's not alone, and this isn't dangerous territory. Kyle took a step forward. This is my territory, and if anything happens to her, anything at all, I'll hold you personally responsible. You can't threaten me. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Kyle's voice was very quiet now, very calm. You rode here with 20 men thinking that would intimidate me, but I have 200 warriors in this keep alone. Another 1,000 scattered across the territories, all of them loyal, all of them ready to fight. For what? A girl you've known a month? For the principle. No one takes what's mine. The words hung in the air like a blade. Marcus's smile faltered. She's not yours. She's legally bound to me. Then take it to court. Sue me. Waste your time and money trying to prove a contract that was signed under duress is valid. I'll wait. Cale crossed his arms. But you're not taking her today. And if you try, my men will remove you. Forcefully. The guards on the wall raised their weapons. Arrows knocked. Ready. Marcus looked around. Did the math. 20 mercenaries against 200 wolf-born warriors. On their home ground. In their fortress. He was outmatched, and he knew it. This isn't over, he said finally. No, Cale agreed. It's not. Marcus yanked his horse around, spurred it hard. His mercenaries followed. They rode back down the mountain, and the keep watched them go in tense silence. When they were gone, Kyle turned to look up at Serena. You all right? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Get down here. We need to talk. She climbed down, joined him in the courtyard. The crowd had dispersed, but she could feel the weight of their stares from windows and doorways. Everyone watching, everyone judging. Kyle led her inside, through corridors, upstairs, into his private study. He closed the door, leaned against it, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. He's not going to stop, Kyle said. I know. He's going to push this to court, make it public, drag both our names through the mud. I know. And when he can't get to you legally, Kale stopped, ran a hand through his hair. He's going to try something else, something worse. Serena's chest tightened. What do you mean? I mean men like Marcus don't accept defeat. They escalate. He met her eyes. If he can't marry you, he'll try to ruin you, or remove you entirely. You think he'd actually... I think he's capable of anything, and I think we just backed him into a corner. Kyle crossed to the window, looked out at the mountains. I should have let you go. Should have sent you home that first night and avoided all of this. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He turned to face her. And now we're in it. Both of us. Serena walked to stand beside him. Outside, the sun was setting again. Another day ending, another storm coming. I'm not sorry, she said quietly, for any of it. For running, for finding you, for fighting back. Even if it gets messy, even if it gets dangerous. You should be. This isn't your fight. It is now. She looked at him. You said I was worth fighting for. Were you lying? No. Then let me fight. With you, not behind you. Cale studied her face. Whatever he saw there made something in his expression shift, soften. You're going to get yourself killed one day, you know that? Probably, but I'll go down swinging. He almost smiled. Yeah, you will. They stood together in the fading light, and Serena felt something settle in her chest. Not peace exactly, but certainty. She'd made her choice. Now she just had to survive it. Marcus came back that night. Not to the keep. He was smarter than that. He went to Ashford, to the Vale House, and he brought fire. Serena was asleep when the messenger arrived, one of Kyle's scouts who'd been watching the lowlands. He hammered on the door hard enough to wake the whole keep. Fire in Ashford, he gasped when Kale answered. The Vale estate. It's burning. Serena was dressed and mounted before Kale could stop her. He swore, grabbed his own horse, ordered 10 guards to follow. They rode hard through the night, pushing the horses faster than was safe on the mountain roads. Serena's heart hammered in her chest. Her family, her mother, too sick to run. Daniel, her father, please let them be okay. Please. They smelled the smoke before they saw it, thick and acrid, choking. Then they crested the hill and saw the orange glow lighting the sky. The house was an inferno. Flames ate through the roof, climbed the walls, shattered windows with the heat. People had formed a bucket line from the well, but it was useless. The fire was too big, too hot, too fast. Serena threw herself off her horse while it was still moving, ran toward the house. Someone grabbed her, Kyle, and she fought him. "Let me go! They're in there! You can't! My mother!" A figure stumbled out of the smoke. Daniel, coughing, face black with soot. He carried something in his arms. Someone. Margaret. Serena ran to them. "Mom!" Margaret was unconscious, not moving. Daniel laid her on the ground, and Serena pressed her ear to her mother's chest. Heartbeat. Faint, but there. "She breathed in too much smoke," Daniel gasped. "I got her out, but Dad, he went back for the documents. He's still inside." Before anyone could stop her, Serena ran toward the burning house. "Serena!" She didn't stop. Couldn't. Her father was in there. The heat hit her like a wall. Smoke burned her lungs, her eyes. She pulled her shirt over her mouth, squinted through the flames. "Dad! Dad!" A crash from the study. She ran toward it, found her father pinned under a fallen beam, surrounded by fire. Papers scattered everywhere. Contracts, deeds, all of it burning. "Serena!" Edwin coughed. "Get out! Not without you!" She grabbed the beam. It was hot enough to blister her palms, but she didn't care. She pulled, screaming with the effort. It didn't move. Then Kyle was there, lifting the other end. Together they heaved the beam off Edwin. Kyle grabbed him, threw him over his shoulder, grabbed Serena's arm. "Move!" They ran. The ceiling came down behind them, a wave of fire and debris. Out through the door, into the courtyard, onto the grass. Edwin collapsed, coughing up black smoke. Serena knelt beside him. "You're okay. You're okay." He grabbed her hand. "The papers, I couldn't save. Everything's gone. I don't care about the papers. But the evidence, proof that Marcus..." He coughed again, harder. "He did this. I know he did." Serena looked back at the house, at the flames consuming everything she'd ever known. Every memory, every piece of her childhood, gone. And standing at the edge of the crowd, just visible in the firelight, was Marcus Hale. Watching, smiling. Their eyes met. He raised his hand, waved. Something inside Serena snapped. She stood, started walking toward him. Cale tried to grab her arm. She shook him off. "Serena." She kept walking, through the crowd, toward Marcus. People moved out of her way, sensing something dangerous in her stride. Marcus's smile widened. "Terrible accident. These old houses, you know. Faulty wiring. Very tragic." Serena stopped 3 feet away. "You did this. Can you prove it?" "I don't need to prove it. I know." Knowing and proving are different things. He stepped closer, lowered his voice. 6 days, Serena. That's all you had, and you wasted them. Now your family has nothing. No house, no documents, no leverage. He smiled. "No choice." "There's always a choice." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you can either marry me and I'll help your family rebuild, or you can keep playing games with your king and I'll make sure they never recover. Ever." Serena looked at him. Really looked at him. At the cruelty in his smile, the calculation in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he'd won. And she made her choice. "No," she said clearly, loudly. "I won't marry you. Not today, not in 6 days, not ever." Marcus's smile faltered. "You're going to regret. The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." She turned to face the crowd. Every eye in Ashford was on her now. "Good. Marcus Hale burned my family's house. He's been threatening us, manipulating us, trying to force me into a marriage I don't want. And I'm done. You can't prove any of that. I don't have to, because I have something better." She looked at Kyle. "Tell them." Kale stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice carried across the whole crowd. "Serena Vale is under my protection. As of tonight, she's formally entering courtship with me. Anyone who harms her, threatens her, or tries to force her into anything against her will answers to me personally." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus went pale. "You can't. This is a civil matter. It's a territorial matter now. And in my territory, forced marriage is illegal. Arson is illegal. Threatening women is illegal." Hale's gaze was cold.
You've broken all 3 laws tonight, Hale. I suggest you leave before I have you arrested. On what authority? On the authority of the Alpha King, whose word is law in the borderlands, which technically starts— Cale looked around. About 3 miles west of here, but I'm willing to extend jurisdiction for special cases. He smiled. It wasn't friendly. Marcus looked around at the crowd, at the guards surrounding him.
At Serena standing tall and unafraid beside Kyle. He'd lost. And everyone knew it. "This isn't over," he spat. "Yes," Serena said quietly. "It is." Marcus left, stormed to his horse, rode away into the night. The crowd erupted in whispers. Serena turned to Kyle. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet. That was reckless and dangerous and probably just made everything worse." "I know." She looked back at the burning house, at her family sitting on the grass, covered in soot and shock. But it was worth it. Kale followed her gaze, sighed. "Come on, let's get them somewhere safe." They gathered the veils, loaded them into wagons, started the long ride back to the keep. Behind them, the house burned through the night, and somewhere in the darkness, Marcus Hale was planning his next move. But so was Serena, and she was done running. The keep's healer spent 2 hours working on Margaret before she finally opened her eyes. Serena sat beside her mother's bed in one of the guest rooms, hands bandaged from the burns, clothes still reeking of smoke. She hadn't slept, couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the house burning, heard Daniel screaming, felt the heat trying to eat her alive. When Margaret's eyes fluttered open, Serena leaned forward. "Mom, can you hear me?" Margaret's gaze wandered, unfocused, then found Serena's face. Her lips moved, no sound came out. "Don't try to talk, just rest." But Margaret grabbed her hand, weak grip, trembling, and pulled her closer, whispered something Serena had to strain to hear. "I'm sorry." Serena's throat closed. "You don't have to." "I do. I was wrong. About Marcus, about forcing you, about all of it." Tears slid down Margaret's face, cutting tracks through the soot still clinging to her skin. "I almost got you killed. I almost got all of us killed." "It's not your fault. Marcus did this, not you. I gave him the power. I told you he was a good man. I pushed you toward him when you were screaming to get away." Margaret's grip tightened. "And you saved us anyway, even after everything we did." Serena's eyes burned. "You're my family. What else was I supposed to do?" "Run. Save yourself. Let us face the consequences." Margaret managed a weak smile. "But you're too stubborn for that, just like your father." Edwin appeared in the doorway, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His face was bruised where the beam had caught him, his hands wrapped in the same white bandages as Serena's. He crossed to the bed, knelt beside it. "Margaret, I'm all right, Edwin. Or I will be." She looked between them. "Where's Daniel?" "Sleeping. Finally. The healer gave him something." Edwin took his wife's other hand. "You scared us." "I scared myself." Margaret coughed, winced. "The house? Gone. All of it." She closed her eyes. More tears leaked out. "Everything we built can be rebuilt. That's just walls and wood. You," Edwin's voice cracked, "you're what matters. You and the children. Nothing else." They sat together in silence for a while. Serena wanted to leave, give them privacy, but Margaret wouldn't let go of her hand. Finally, Edwin spoke, his gaze finding Serena's. "What you did tonight, standing up to Marcus in front of everyone, that took more courage than I've ever had." "I was just tired of being afraid." "No, you were brave. There's a difference." He paused. "And Kyle, what he said about the courtship, is that real, or were you both just trying to protect you?" Serena hesitated. The lie was right there, easy to tell. But looking at her parents, broken and ash-covered and finally being honest, she couldn't do it. "It started as protection," she admitted. "A way to keep Marcus from forcing my hand. But somewhere along the way, it became something else." Margaret studied her face. "You care about him." "I do." "And he cares about you?" Serena thought about Kael pulling her off the cliff.
giving her space when she needed it, standing beside her when Marcus came, running into a burning building because she did. "Yeah," she said softly. "I think he does." "Then that's enough." Margaret squeezed her hand. "More than enough. Whatever happens next, you have my blessing." Edwin nodded. "Mine too, for what it's worth." It was worth more than they knew. A knock at the door interrupted them. Lena stuck her head in, grinned when she saw Serena. "Hey, Kyle wants to see you. Says it's important." Serena stood, squeezed her mother's hand one more time. "I'll be back." "We'll be here." She followed Lena through the keep, acutely aware of the eyes tracking her movement. Word had spread fast about what happened in Ashford, about Marcus, about the fire, about Serena running into the flames. People whispered as she passed, but the whispers had changed. Less suspicion now, more curiosity, maybe even respect. Lena noticed. "You're becoming a legend, you know that?" "Great, that's exactly what I needed." "I'm serious. Half the keep is talking about how you faced down Marcus in front of everyone. The other half is talking about how you ran into a burning building to save your father. People are impressed." "People should mind their own business," Lena laughed. "This is the territories. Everyone's business is everyone's business. Get used to it." They reached Kyle's study. Lena knocked, pushed the door open without waiting for an answer. "One heroic runaway, as requested." Kyle looked up from the papers scattered across his desk. He looked tired, deep circles under his eyes, hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. But when he saw Serena, something in his expression eased. "How's your mother?" "Awake, talking. She'll recover." "Good." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. We need to discuss what happens next." Serena sat. Lena made herself comfortable on the windowsill, clearly not leaving. Kyle didn't seem to mind. He pushed a paper across the desk towards Serena. "This arrived an hour ago, from the magistrate in Ashford." Serena picked it up, read. Her stomach dropped. It was a summons. Marcus was taking her to court. Breach of contract. He was suing for damages, not just the marriage contract, but compensation for emotional distress, public humiliation, and loss of expected business opportunities. The amount listed made her dizzy. "He's asking for $50,000, she said quietly, "which your family doesn't have." "No, they don't." She set the paper down. "Can he actually win this?" "Depends on the judge. The contract was signed by your father, not you. But in the lowlands, fathers still have legal authority over unmarried daughters in business matters. If the judge is old-fashioned or bought, Marcus might have a case." "So what do we do?" Kyle leaned back in his chair. "We fight it. I have lawyers. Good ones. They'll argue that a contract signed under economic duress isn't valid, that forced marriage is illegal under territorial law, which supersedes lowland law in cross-border cases. Will that work? Maybe. Probably not." He ran a hand through his hair. "The problem is Marcus chose his venue carefully. Ashford's magistrate is known for siding with money, and Marcus has a lot of it." Serena felt the walls closing in again. "So we're back where we started." "Not quite. Because now everyone knows what he did. Burning the house was a mistake. It made him look violent, unstable. Even if he wins in court, his reputation is damaged." "His reputation doesn't matter if my family loses everything." "No, but it gives us leverage." Kale pulled out another paper. "I've been making some inquiries. Turns out Marcus's business isn't as solid as he pretends. He's overextended. Took out loans to buy your father's debts. If those loans come due suddenly, how do we make them come due? By finding out who holds them and convincing them to call in the debt." Serena stared at him. "You do that? Destroy his business?" "I'd do worse than that to someone who burned down a house with a sick woman inside." Kale's voice was cold, flat. "Marcus thinks he can threaten you and walk away." "He's wrong." Lena grinned from the windowsill. "I like this plan." "It's not a plan yet. It's a possibility." Kale looked at Serena. "But it'll take time. We need to dig into his finances, find the weak spots, apply pressure. Meanwhile, you need to prepare for court. If we can't destroy him financially before the hearing, we'll have to beat him legally." "And if we can't do either?" Kale's gaze was steady.
Certain. Then we find another way. We keep fighting until there's nothing left of him to fight. Serena felt something warm and fierce bloom in her chest. This man, this king who'd saved her without knowing her, who'd given her shelter without asking for payment, who was now offering to burn down her enemy's entire world just to keep her safe. Why? She asked quietly. Why are you doing all this? I told you, no one takes what's mine. But I'm not, aren't you? He held her gaze. You stood beside me in front of the whole town and claimed this courtship, made it real, made it public. So either we're in this together or we're not. Which is it? Serena's heart hammered. Together. Then we fight together, and we win together. He stood, came around the desk. But first you need rest. You've been up all night. You're burned and exhausted and probably concussed. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. He touched her bandaged hand gently. Go, sleep. When you wake up, we'll start planning. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion was crashing over her in waves now, pulling her under. She nodded, let Lena guide her back to her room. But as she lay down on the bed, still smelling of smoke, she couldn't stop thinking about Kael's words. No one takes what's mine. When had she become his? And why did the thought make her feel safe instead of trapped? She fell asleep before she could find an answer. She woke to shouting. For a confused moment, she thought the house was burning again. Then she recognized the voices. Kael's, low and controlled, and someone else's, high and furious. A woman. Serena got up, winced at the protest of her bruised ribs and burned hands, made her way to the door, cracked it open. Down the hall, Kael stood facing a woman Serena had never seen before. She was tall, dark-haired, beautiful in a sharp-edged way. Expensive clothes, jewelry that caught the torchlight. She looked like she belonged in a palace, not a mountain fortress. Absolutely unacceptable, the woman was saying. You can't just declare courtship with some random girl without consulting the council. I can do whatever I want, Thea. I'm the Alpha King. You're also the head of our alliance. Your marriage affects all 15 clans. We have agreements, treaties. You can't just throw them away for... She stopped, seemed to notice Serena in the doorway. Is that her? Kael turned. His expression softened when he saw Serena. Go back to bed. I'm awake now. The woman, Thea, looked Serena up and down with undisguised contempt. So this is the Veil girl, the one you're risking everything for. Thea, don't. I've known you 15 years, Kael. I've seen you fight wars, unite clans, build something real out of chaos. And now you're throwing it all away for a lowland girl who showed up on your doorstep a month ago? Watch your tone. Why? Because she's so fragile, so precious? Thea stepped closer to Serena, eyes hard. What makes you special exactly? What do you have that's worth destabilizing the entire alliance? Serena met her gaze without flinching. I don't know. Why don't you ask him? Thea's jaw tightened. She turned back to Kael. The council wants to meet. Tonight. They have questions about your sudden courtship. Let them ask. They want to ask her. See if she's actually fit to stand beside an Alpha King, or if this is just a phase you're going through. Kael's expression went cold. Serena doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. She does if she wants to stay here, if she wants your protection, if she wants any of this to be real. Thea crossed her arms. 8 o'clock, main hall. Don't be late. She swept past Serena without another word, disappearing down the stairs. Kael swore under his breath. Serena stepped into the hall. Who was that? Thea Blackwood, head of the Southern clans. Also, he paused. Someone I was supposed to marry. The words hit like cold water. What? It was arranged, years ago. Political alliance between our families. I broke it off when I became king. Told everyone I'd marry for the alliance, not for bloodlines. He ran a hand through his hair. She didn't take it well. I noticed. She's not wrong, though. The council will want to meet you, test you. See if you're strong enough to stand beside me in public. And if I'm not, then they'll pressure me to end the courtship. Find someone more suitable. Serena's chest tightened. Someone like Thea. Someone like any of the clan daughters who've been positioned as potential matches for years. He looked at her. I don't care what they think. But you need to know what you're walking into. A trap. A test. He stepped closer. They're going to try to break you, question everything about you, your family, your past, your motives. They'll look for any sign of weakness. What do I do? Don't give them one. His gaze was steady. Be yourself. Be the girl who ran into a burning building, who stood up to Marcus in front of a crowd, who told me to fight instead of hide. He touched her face gently. Be the person you've been becoming. That's all you need. Serena wanted to believe him, but fear coiled in her stomach anyway.
What if I mess this up? You won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He smiled, brief and warm. Because you're too stubborn to fail. Oh. The main hall was packed. Every clan head, every senior warrior, every important person in the alliance, they were all there, sitting at long tables arranged in a semicircle, faces ranging from curious to hostile. Torches lined the walls. The fireplace roared. The room felt like a furnace. Serena stood in the center of it all, very aware that every eye was on her.
Kale sat at the head table with Mira and two other people she didn't recognize. A grizzled old man with scars across his face and a woman young enough to be his granddaughter. Between them sat Thea, looking perfectly composed. Mira stood. Serena Vale, you've been called before this council to answer questions about your courtship with our king. Do you understand? I do. Then let's begin. Mira gestured to the old man. Rafe, you have questions. Rafe stood slowly, leaning on a cane. When he spoke, his voice was rough as gravel. How long have you known Kyle Draven? A month, give or take. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. And in that month, you've convinced him to court you publicly, to risk his position for you, to make enemies of powerful people in the lowlands. Rafe's eyes were sharp. That's quite an accomplishment. How did you do it? I didn't convince him of anything. He offered help. I accepted. Help? Thea's voice cut across the room.
Or manipulation? Serena turned to face her. If I was manipulative enough to control the Alpha King, do you really think I'd be standing here answering your questions? A few people laughed. Thea's expression didn't change. The young woman at the head table stood next. I'm Kara, Northeast Clans. I have a question about your family. All right. Your father's business collapsed. Your family owes significant debts. Marcus Hale holds those debts.
Some people might say you're using KL to escape your family's obligations. Are you? Serena met her gaze steadily. I ran for Marcus Hale because he was going to force me into a marriage I didn't want. I didn't know Kyle existed when I made that choice. He helped me because he wanted to, not because I asked. But you benefit from his help. Yes, I do. Just like you benefit from being part of this alliance. Just like everyone in this room benefits from Kyle's leadership. Does that make us all manipulative? Kara blinked, sat down. Thea stood again. Let's talk about what happened in Ashford. You publicly claimed courtship with Kyle, made it real in front of witnesses. Was that his idea or yours? Mine. Why? Because Marcus was threatening my family, because I needed protection, because Kyle offered it and I took it. So you're using him. We're using each other. Serena didn't look away. He gets to help someone who needs it. I get to survive. That's how partnerships work. Partnerships, Thea's smile was sharp. Is that what you call it? What would you call it? A girl clinging to power she doesn't deserve. A king making stupid decisions because he feels sorry for someone. Anger flared hot in Serena's chest. You think I don't deserve to be here? Fine. Let's talk about deserving. What have you done to deserve your position? Were you born into it? Given it because of your family name? Because from where I'm standing, the only thing I did differently was choose to fight instead of accept what I was given. The room went silent. Thea's face flushed. You dare! I dare! Serena stepped forward. You want to test me? Test my strength? My worth? Then do it properly. Put me in the training yard. Give me a weapon. Let's see who deserves to stand beside your king. Mira stood quickly. That's not necessary. I think it is. Serena looked at Kyle. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe, or worry. You want to know if I'm strong enough? Prove I'm not. Thea's eyes glittered. You're challenging me?
I'm giving you what you want, a chance to humiliate me in front of everyone. Show them I'm weak, unworthy. Serena smiled without humor. Unless you're afraid you might lose. The room erupted.
People shouted, some encouraging, some protesting. Mira tried to restore order. Kale stood, looking like he wanted to drag Serena out of the hall by force, but Thea just smiled, slow and dangerous. All right, she said quietly. Let's see what you're made of. They moved to the training yard. The entire council followed, along with half the keep. Word spread fast. Within minutes, the yard was packed with spectators. Serena stood in the center, trying not to shake. What had she done? Thea was a trained warrior, a clan leader. She'd probably been fighting since she could walk. Serena had been training for 3 weeks. Lena appeared at her side, thrust a practice staff into her hands. Are you insane? Probably. Thea's going to destroy you. I know. Then why? Because I'm tired of people deciding I'm not good enough without even giving me a chance. Serena gripped the staff. At least this way, when I lose, it'll be on my terms. Lena stared at her, then laughed, sharp and surprised. You really are crazy. I like it. Across the yard, Thea was stretching. She'd stripped down to training clothes, pants and a sleeveless shirt that showed muscled arms covered in scars. She moved like a predator, confident, deadly. Serena felt very small. Kale appeared beside her. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She's been fighting her whole life, Serena. She's not going to go easy on you. Good. I don't want easy. He grabbed her arm, turned her to face him. Listen to me. Thea doesn't just want to beat you. She wants to humiliate you, break you, make you run. Then she's going to be disappointed. Serena met his eyes. I don't run anymore. You taught me that. Something shifted in his expression. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Don't die. I'll try not to. He stepped back. Mira moved to the center of the yard, raised her hand for silence. Standard rules, she announced. First to yield or first to hit the ground, 3 times loses. No killing strikes. Begin when ready. Thea took her position. Serena faced her across 10 feet of dirt. The yard went quiet. Thea attacked first. She came in fast, faster than Lena, faster than anyone Serena had sparred with. Her staff was a blur. Serena barely got hers up in time to block. The impact rattled her teeth. Thea pressed the advantage. Strike, strike, sweep. Serena backpedaled, blocking frantically, trying to remember everything she'd learned. Keep your stance low. Watch her shoulders. Don't overthink. Thea's staff cracked against her ribs. Pain exploded through Serena's side. She stumbled. Thea swept her legs. Serena hit the ground hard. First fall. The crowd murmured. She rolled, pushed to her feet. Thea was already coming again. This time, Serena was ready. She caught the first strike, deflected the second, managed a counter that made Thea step back. For about 2 seconds. Then Thea shifted tactics, went low, came up inside Serena's guard, used her staff like a spear, caught Serena across the shoulder. Serena spun, hit the ground again. Second fall. Yield, Thea said. Not even breathing hard. Serena stood, blood in her mouth, ribs screaming, vision blurring at the edges. No! Thea's expression hardened. Have it your way. The next exchange was brutal. Thea wasn't playing anymore. She attacked like she meant it. Strikes that would have broken bones if the staff had been real wood instead of practice weight. Serena blocked some, took others, felt something crack in her wrist, tasted blood. But she didn't go down. She stayed on her feet, blocked what she could, took what she couldn't, refused to yield. Thea's face was flushed now, frustrated. Just give up! Make me! They clashed again. Serena saw an opening, Thea overextending on a high strike. She went low, swept hard at Thea's legs. Connected. Thea stumbled. Didn't fall, but stumbled. The crowd gasped. Thea recovered fast, came back with renewed fury. But something had shifted. She was angry now, sloppy. Serena pressed, not trying to win. She knew she couldn't win, but trying to make Thea work for it, make her respect the fight. They traded blows. Serena took more than she gave, but she gave enough. Finally, Thea caught her across the temple with a strike that made the world tilt. Serena went down. Third fall. The yard went silent. Mira stepped forward. The match goes to... Wait! Serena pushed herself up. Everything hurt. Her vision was doubled. But she got to her feet anyway, faced Thea. I'm not done. Thea stared at her. You lost. Yeah, but I didn't quit. Serena spat blood into the dirt. That was the test, right? To see if I'd break. If I'd run. She smiled through split lips. Well, I'm still standing, so what now? Thea looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly, she lowered her staff. Now you've earned my respect. She walked away. The crowd parted for her. Serena stood alone in the center of the yard, bleeding and battered and victorious in a way that had nothing to do with winning. Kyle was there suddenly, catching her as her legs gave out. You idiot! I know. Oh, you beautiful, stubborn, impossible idiot. He carried her toward the keep. The crowd watched in silence. Then someone started clapping, slow at first. Then others joined, until the whole yard was applauding, not for winning, for refusing to quit. As Kyle carried her inside, Serena looked back once, saw Thea watching from the edge of the crowd. Their eyes met. Thea nodded once, a warrior's acknowledgement. Serena nodded back. Then the doors closed and everything went dark. She woke in the healer's room. Again. This was becoming a habit. Kyle sat beside the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when she stirred. Relief flooded his face. Hey. Hey yourself. Her voice came out rough. How bad? Cracked ribs, broken wrist, concussion, bruises everywhere. He touched her face gently. The healer says you'll recover, but you need to rest. Can't. Court date, Marcus. I postponed it. Told the magistrate you were injured. We have another 2 weeks. That's cheating. That's strategy. He smiled, tired. What you did tonight, that was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Both, probably. Yeah, both. He took her good hand. The council's backing off. Thea told them to, said you proved yourself. By getting destroyed? By not quitting. In the territories, that matters more than winning. He paused. You changed their minds, Serena. They see you differently now. As what? A punching bag? As someone worth fighting for. The words settled over her like a blanket, warm and heavy and real. Kyle, she said quietly, this courtship, the lies we've been telling, when does it become real? He looked at her for a long time. What if it already is? Her heart stuttered. What? What if I'm not pretending anymore? What if I haven't been for a while? He squeezed her hand. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you weeks ago. Okay. When I found you on that cliff, it wasn't an accident. I was looking for you. Serena frowned. That doesn't make sense. You didn't know me. No, but I felt you. There's a thing we don't talk about much, a bond, between alpha wolves and their... He stopped, started again. I've been searching for my fated bond for 10 years. The one person who completes me, who balances me. Every alpha has one. Most never find them. Kyle, I felt you run that night, felt your fear, your determination. I followed it to the cliff. And when I saw you, his voice cracked. I knew. You're mine, Serena. My fated bond. The one I've been looking for. The room spun. That can't be. I know how it sounds. I know it seems like fate or destiny or some cosmic joke, but it's real. The bond is real. And it's been pulling me toward you since the moment we met. Serena's chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to trap you. Didn't want you to feel obligated. You'd just escaped one forced bond. I wasn't going to impose another. He looked at her with raw honesty. I wanted you to choose me. Not because fate said so, because you wanted to. Tears burned Serena's eyes. And if I don't, if I can't, then I let you go. The bond doesn't force feelings, Serena. It just recognizes compatibility. Connection. You still get to choose. She stared at him. This man who'd saved her, protected her, fought for her, who was now giving her the choice he'd never been given. I choose you, she whispered. His eyes widened. What? I choose you.
Not because of fate, because of who you are, what you've shown me, how you've treated me. She pulled him closer with her good hand. I choose you, Kyle Draven, if you'll have me. He kissed her, gentle and careful, mindful of her injuries. But there was nothing careful about the emotion behind it. Relief, joy, something deeper that neither of them had words for. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He laughed, pressed his forehead to hers. You're going to make one hell of a queen. Don't get ahead of yourself. We still have to survive Marcus. We will. Together. Together, she agreed. Outside, dawn was breaking over the mountains. A new day. A new beginning. And for the first time since she could remember, Serena wasn't afraid of what came next. Because she wasn't facing it alone anymore. 2 weeks gave them time for Serena's ribs to heal enough that she could breathe without wincing. Time for Kael's investigators to dig into Marcus Hale's finances and find the cracks. Time for the Vale family to settle into the keep and start figuring out what came next. Time for Serena to realize that choosing Kael meant choosing everything that came with him. She stood on the training yard at dawn, watching the warriors run through their drills. Her wrist was still splinted, but she held a staff in her good hand anyway, going through the basic forms Lena had taught her, slowly, carefully, refusing to let the injuries make her weak. You should be resting. Mira appeared beside her, arms crossed, but her voice wasn't harsh, just matter of fact. I've been resting for 2 weeks. You had a concussion and broken bones. Normal people rest longer. I'm not normal people anymore. Serena shifted her grip, executed a block that made her ribs protest. If I'm going to stand beside Kael, I need to be able to hold my own. Mira watched her for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. You know what I told him when he first brought you here? I said you'd be gone within a week. Run back to your comfortable life. I know. I heard you arguing. I was wrong. You didn't run. You stayed. You fought. You proved me wrong. But Mira took the staff from Serena's hand, demonstrated a smoother way to transition between forms. That takes guts, especially for someone who wasn't raised to this life. I wasn't raised to any life. I was raised to be decorative and obedient. Serena took the staff back, tried the movement. Better. This is better. Even with the constant danger and people trying to kill you? Especially then. At least here I get to fight back. Mira laughed, sharp and genuine. Yeah, you'll fit in fine. They trained together for another hour. By the time the sun cleared the mountains, Serena was sweating and sore, but felt more centered than she had in days. This was who she was becoming, not the girl who ran from her wedding, not the fugitive hiding in a fortress. Someone stronger, someone whole. Kael found her in the bath afterward, soaking her aching muscles in hot water that smelled like pine and something medicinal the healer had added. How's the wrist? He asked, settling on the edge of the tub. Hurts, but functional. She held it up, showed him the splint. Another week, and I can take this off. Good, because we have a problem. Serena's stomach dropped. Marcus? His lawyers filed a motion. They want to move the court date up. Claim we're deliberately stalling. Kael ran a hand through his hair. The magistrate agreed. We have 3 days. 3 days? That's not enough time. I know, my lawyers are furious. But there's nothing we can do about it. The hearing is set for Friday morning. Serena sank deeper into the water. Did your investigators find anything we can use? Yes and no. Kael pulled out a folded paper from his coat. Marcus took out 3 major loans to finance buying your father's debts, all from the same source, a merchant bank in the capital. The bank's owner is someone named Victoria Cross. Ring any bells? No. Should it? Maybe. She's been buying up distressed businesses all over the lowlands, building an empire, very quietly, very carefully. He handed her the paper. Here's the interesting part. 6 months ago, Marcus defaulted on a smaller loan to her. She gave him an extension, but the terms were brutal. If he defaults again, she gets everything, his business, his properties, all of it. Serena scanned the document. The numbers made her head spin. So if we can prove Marcus is unstable, she might call in the debt, force him into bankruptcy. Kael smiled, sharp and dangerous. which is exactly what we're going to do. How? By making him lose control, publicly, in front of witnesses. Cale leaned forward. Marcus's whole power base is built on reputation. He's the respectable businessman, the solid investment. If we shatter that image, Victoria Cross will drop him like dead weight. Serena thought about Marcus's cold smile, his casual cruelty, the way he'd burned her family's house down and walked away clean. What do you need me to do? Testify. Tell the truth about what he did, what he threatened. Don't hold back. Make him angry enough to show his real face. And if it doesn't work, if he keeps his composure, then we go to plan B. Which is? Cale's smile widened. You'll see. The courthouse in Ashford was packed. It seemed like the whole town had turned out to watch. People lined the streets outside, craned their necks to see through the windows. Inside, every seat was filled. The air was thick with tension and the smell of too many bodies in too small a space. Serena sat at the defendant's table with Kael's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Helena, who'd spent the last 3 days drilling Serena on testimony. Across the aisle, Marcus sat with his own legal team, looking perfectly composed in an expensive suit. He caught Serena's eye and smiled. She didn't smile back. Behind her in the gallery sat her family. Her mother looked better, color back in her cheeks, breathing easier. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand. Her father was on the other side, shoulders straight despite everything. Kael sat behind them. He couldn't be at her table, conflict of interest, Helena had said, but he'd refused to wait outside. So he sat in the gallery with the rest of the spectators, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The magistrate entered. Everyone stood. Judge Carver was exactly what Serena had feared. Old, male, traditional. He looked at her over wire-rimmed glasses like she was something distasteful. This was going to be bad. The hearing began. Marcus's lawyer went first, laying out the case. Edwin Vale had signed the contract. Serena had agreed to marry Marcus within 30 days. She'd fled instead, breaking the agreement. Marcus was entitled to compensation for the breach. It was all very clinical, very legal, like Serena was a piece of property that had been misdelivered. Then it was Helena's turn. Your Honor, we're not disputing that a contract was signed. What we're disputing is whether it's enforceable. Helena stood, projected her voice to fill the courtroom. The contract was signed under economic duress. Marcus Hale deliberately orchestrated the Vale family's financial collapse by buying up their debts, then offered marriage as the only solution. That's coercion, not agreement. Objection, Marcus's lawyer said smoothly. Mr. Hale's business dealings with the Vale family were legitimate transactions. He can't be held responsible for their poor financial decisions. Poor financial decisions that Mr. Hale directly profited from, Helena countered. He created the crisis, then presented himself as the solution. That's textbook predatory behavior. Judge Carver frowned. Do you have evidence of this alleged orchestration? We have testimony from the defendant herself. I'd like to hear it. Miss Vale, please take the stand. Serena stood. Her legs felt unsteady, but she forced them to move, walked to the witness stand, swore to tell the truth. Helena approached. Miss Vale, can you describe your relationship with Marcus Hale? Serena took a breath. He was my father's business associate, or claimed to be. He started coming around about 6 months ago, always friendly, always helpful. Then our business started failing. Clients disappeared. Suppliers cut us off. My father couldn't understand it. And Mr. Hale's role in this? He was the one buying up our debts, creating the problems, then offering to solve them if I married him. Marcus's lawyer stood. Objection. Speculation. Miss Vale has no evidence. I have his own words, Serena interrupted. He told me himself the day before the wedding. He said once we were married, my father would sign over the company, that it was the only way to save it, for him. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Judge Carver banged his gavel. Order. Continue, Miss Vale. He didn't want a wife. He wanted control. He wanted to own my family's business, and me along with it. Serena looked directly at Marcus. And when I refused, he tried to force me. Then when that didn't work, he burned my family's house down. The courtroom erupted. Marcus shot to his feet. That's a lie. Order. Judge Carver's gavel cracked like thunder.
Mr. Hale, sit down. She's lying, Your Honor. I had nothing to do with that fire. I said sit down. Marcus sat, but his composure was cracking. Serena could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the flush creeping up his neck. Good.
Helena pressed forward. Miss Vale, do you believe Marcus Hale is capable of violence? I know he is. I've seen it. Serena kept her voice steady. He threatened my family, threatened me. He told me accidents happen to women who travel alone, that if I didn't come back, something might happen to my mother. Objection! Hearsay! I was there, Daniel said from the gallery, standing up despite his mother trying to pull him down. I heard him say it, at our house, before the fire.
Judge Carver looked annoyed. Young man, you're not on the stand. Then put me on the stand, Daniel said. Let me testify. I'll swear to it. Marcus's lawyer was on his feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Everything about this case is irregular, Helena said. But if the court wants testimony, we have multiple witnesses, all saying the same thing. Marcus Hale is violent, manipulative, and dangerous. Judge Carver rubbed his temples. I'll allow the testimony. Mr. Vale, take the stand. Daniel did, swore his oath, told the court everything he'd seen and heard. Then Edwin testified. Then Margaret, her voice thin but clear, describing how Marcus had threatened them, how he'd made the fire look like an accident. The evidence piled up, circumstantial maybe, but damning. Marcus's lawyer tried to discredit them, said they were bitter, lying to avoid their obligations. But the more he pushed, the angrier Marcus got. Serena could see him unraveling bit by bit. Finally, Helena called her final witness. The defense calls Kyle Draven to the stand. The courtroom went silent. Cale stood, walked to the stand. He looked calm, controlled, but there was something predatory in his movements, like a wolf circling prey. Helena faced him. King Draven, you're currently courting Miss Vale. Is that correct? Yes. And how did that courtship begin? I found her running from her wedding, helped her, got to know her, realized she was worth knowing better. He looked at Serena. The rest followed naturally. Did she ever ask for your protection in exchange for romantic consideration? No. I offered protection first. The relationship developed later. And in your professional opinion, as someone who's dealt with predatory behavior in the territories, would you characterize Marcus Hale's actions as predatory? Marcus's lawyer stood. Objection. King Draven isn't qualified. He's qualified to recognize abuse of power, Helena said. He's been fighting it for 10 years. Judge Carver considered. I'll allow it. Answer the question, King Draven. Cale looked at Marcus. Yes. I'd characterize his behavior as predatory, manipulative, dangerous. He orchestrated a crisis, then presented himself as the solution. That's how predators operate. They create dependence, then exploit it. And the fire? Arson. Attempted murder. Take your pick. Cale's voice was cold. He burned a house with a sick woman inside because Serena had the audacity to say no. Marcus lost it. He stood, fists clenched. You don't know anything about it. I know you're a coward who hides behind money and lawyers because you can't handle being told no. I gave that family everything. You gave them nothing but threats and terror. Order! Judge Carver's gavel nearly broke. Both of you, control yourselves or I'll have you removed. But the damage was done. Marcus stood there, red-faced and furious, looking nothing like the composed businessman he'd pretended to be. Looking exactly like what he was. A bully, a predator, a man who couldn't control his own temper. In the back of the courtroom, a woman stood, tall, elegant, silver-haired. She'd been sitting quietly through the whole proceeding, taking notes. Now she walked out, heels clicking on marble. Victoria Cross. It had to be. Cale caught Serena's eye, nodded slightly. Plan B was in motion. Judge Carver called a recess. Helena pulled Serena aside. That was good. Marcus showing his temper. That helps us. But I won't lie. Carver doesn't like you. Doesn't like Kyle. Doesn't like anything that challenges the old ways. So we might still lose. We might. But even if we do, we won. Marcus just destroyed his own reputation in front of half the town.
Victoria Cross walked out during his meltdown. That means something. What? It means she's cutting ties. Fast. Helena smiled. I bet money his loans get called by the end of the week. Serena looked across the hallway where Marcus stood with his lawyers, arguing in furious whispers. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Kael appeared at her elbow. How are you holding up? Better than him. She nodded toward Marcus. Good, because it's about to get worse, for him anyway. A bailiff approached. Court's resuming. Judge Carver is ready to deliver his ruling. They filed back in, took their seats.
The courtroom was quieter now, tense, everyone waiting. Judge Carver entered, sat, arranged his papers with deliberate slowness. Finally, he spoke. I've heard testimony from both sides, reviewed the evidence. And I have to say, this is one of the most contentious cases I've seen in 30 years on the bench. He looked at Marcus. Mr. Hale, your behavior in this courtroom has been reprehensible, and the evidence suggests a pattern of manipulation and intimidation that troubles me deeply.
Marcus's lawyer looked relieved. Serena's heart sank. However, Judge Carver continued, legally speaking, the contract was signed by Edwin Vale, who had the authority to do so, and I cannot find sufficient grounds to invalidate it based on claims of duress that cannot be definitively proven. No. But, Judge Carver said, I'm also not blind to the moral implications here. Miss Vale was put in an impossible position.
And while I can't void the contract outright, I can rule that the remedy for breach is not marriage, but financial compensation. And given the circumstances, I'm reducing the amount Mr. Hale is claiming to... He consulted his notes. $5,000, to be paid over 2 years, without interest. The courtroom erupted. Marcus's lawyer shouted objections. Helena was on her feet, arguing for complete dismissal. Judge Carver banged his gavel until order was restored. My ruling stands, he said. 5,000. 2 years. The contract is satisfied with payment, not performance. Court adjourned. He stood and left before anyone could argue further. Serena sat frozen, trying to process. They'd lost, but also won? 5,000 was still a fortune. But it was better than marriage, better than... Kael grabbed her hand. That's a win. How is that a win? My family can't pay 5,000. They don't have to. I will. She turned to stare at him.
What? 5,000 is nothing to me. I'll pay it today. The debt's satisfied. Marcus gets his money, you get your freedom. He smiled. And based on the scene we just witnessed, Victoria Cross is going to call his loans within the week. He'll be bankrupt before winter. Serena felt something loosen in her chest. It's over? It's over. She turned to look at Marcus. He was arguing with his lawyers, face still red, gesturing wildly. He looked desperate, panicked. He'd lost. Not in court, maybe, but in every way that mattered. His reputation was destroyed, his composure shattered, his financial backer gone. Serena had beaten him, not with money or power or violence, with the truth, with witnesses, with people willing to stand beside her and say enough. She stood, walked across the aisle. Marcus saw her coming, stopped mid-sentence. Serena, I want you to know something, she said quietly. You tried to control me, own me, break me, and you failed. Not because I was stronger than you, but because I refused to let you win. Marcus's jaw tightened. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just haven't figured it out yet. She leaned closer. Enjoy bankruptcy, Marcus. I hear it's very humbling. She walked away, didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown. People pressed close, shouting questions. Serena ignored them, just kept walking until Kael caught up, took her hand, and pulled her through the mob to where the horses waited. They rode back toward the keep in silence. Serena's family followed in a wagon. The mountains rose ahead, solid and permanent and safe. Home. When had the keep become home? Somewhere between running from wolves and fighting Thea. Somewhere between learning to hold a staff and choosing Kael. Somewhere in the past 6 weeks, she'd stopped being a fugitive and started being something else. Someone whole. The celebration that night was loud. The whole keep turned out to mark Serena's victory.
Warriors drinking, musicians playing, people dancing around bonfires in the courtyard. Even Thea showed up, raised a cup to Serena with something that might have been respect, might have been acknowledgement. Serena couldn't drink. Her ribs still hurt too much. But she sat near the fire, watched the celebration, and felt something like peace settle over her. Lena dropped down beside her, grinning.
You did it. You actually did it. We did it. All of us. Nah, you led the charge. We just followed. Lena took a long drink. You know what this means, right? That I can finally sleep without wondering if Marcus is going to show up? That you're going to be queen. Lena's grin widened. Kale's not subtle. Everyone knows you're bonded. He's just waiting for the right time to make it official. Serena's heart skipped. He told you about the bond? Didn't have to. Anyone with eyes can see it. The way he looks at you, the way you ground each other. Lena elbowed her gently. Welcome to the family, Your Majesty. Don't call me that. Too late. It's happening. Serena laughed despite herself. Across the courtyard, she caught Kael's eye. He was talking with Mira and Rafe, but his gaze found hers like a compass finding north. He smiled. She smiled back. Yeah, it was happening. Later, when the fires had burned low and most people had drifted off to bed, Kael found her on the battlements. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much in my head. He came to stand beside her. They looked out at the mountains together, dark shapes against a darker sky. Thank you, Serena said quietly, for everything, for saving me, for fighting with me, for giving me a choice. You would have saved yourself eventually. Maybe, but it would have been harder. She turned to face him. And lonelier. Kael reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his coat, opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple silver band with a single stone, gray-blue like winter ice. It's not official yet, Kael said. We can wait as long as you want. But I wanted you to know, I'm not going anywhere. This courtship, this bond, this thing between us, it's real. And when you're ready to make it permanent, I'll be here. Serena looked at the ring, at this man offering her forever without demanding anything in return. What if I'm ready now? His eyes widened. What? What if I don't want to wait? What if I want to choose this, choose you, right now? Serena, I spent my whole life waiting for the right moment, the safe choice, the careful path. She took the ring from the box. I'm done waiting. I choose you, Kael Draven, now, today, forever. He kissed her, deep and certain and full of promise. When they broke apart, he was smiling wider than she'd ever seen. You're sure? I've never been more sure. He took the ring, slid it onto her finger. Perfect fit. Then I guess I'm getting married, he said. I guess you are? They stood together under the stars, and Serena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. The future was still uncertain. There would be challenges ahead. Politics, power struggles, people who didn't approve. But she'd face them standing beside someone who believed in her. Someone who'd seen her at her weakest and loved her anyway. Someone who'd given her the greatest gift of all. A choice. 3 months later, they held the wedding in the keep's great hall. Every clan sent representatives. Serena's family sat in the front row, her mother healthy again, her father looking proud despite everything, Daniel grinning like an idiot. Even Thea showed up, dressed in formal clan colors, managing a tight smile when Serena caught her eye. The ceremony was shorter than traditional lowland weddings. No long speeches, no elaborate rituals. Just Kael and Serena standing before the assembled clans, speaking vows they'd written themselves. I promise to stand beside you, Serena said. Not behind you, not in front of you, beside you, as an equal, a partner. Someone who challenges you and supports you and refuses to let you face anything alone. Kael's voice was steady. I promise to see you, not as an obligation or a prize or a symbol, as a person, complicated and stubborn and braver than you know. I promise to give you space when you need it and fight beside you when you don't. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life. Mira blessed the union. The hall erupted in cheers. They kissed to thunderous applause.
Afterward, there was food and music and dancing that lasted until dawn. Serena danced with Kael, with her father, with Daniel, with Lena. Laughed until her ribs hurt. Accepted congratulations from people who'd been strangers 2 months ago and were family now. Late in the night, she found herself back on the battlements, alone this time, looking out at the territory that was hers now, too. Footsteps behind her, her mother. Margaret came to stand beside her daughter, looking out at the same view. "It's beautiful up here." "Yeah, it is. I never imagined you'd end up here, married to a king, living in the mountains." Margaret smiled. "I thought you'd marry someone comfortable, safe, build a quiet life." "I did too, for a while. Are you happy?" Serena thought about the past 3 months, rebuilding after the court case, learning the politics of the territories, training every day until her body was lean and strong. About standing beside Kael as an equal, making decisions that affected thousands of people. About the weight of responsibility and the freedom that came with choosing it. "Yeah," she said. "I'm happy." Margaret pulled her into a hug. "I'm proud of you. I should have said that sooner, before everything. But I'm saying it now. I'm so proud of who you've become." Serena hugged her back, tears stinging her eyes. "Thanks, Mom." They stood together for a while. Then Margaret went back inside, leaving Serena alone with the stars. Not alone for long. Kael appeared, wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You okay?" "Perfect." "Liar. You're exhausted." "Fine. I'm exhausted and perfect." She leaned back against him. "Today was good. Today was chaos. But good chaos." He kissed the top of her head. "Ready for tomorrow?" Tomorrow they'd start the work of actually ruling together, dealing with clan disputes, managing resources, preparing for winter, the real work that came after the celebration. Serena smiled. "Ready." They went inside together, leaving the battlements empty, but Serena looked back once, seeing the view with new eyes. 6 months ago, she'd been running from a life she didn't want, running from obligation and expectation and a future written by other people. Now she was running toward something, toward purpose, toward partnership, toward a life she'd chosen for herself. The mountains stood eternal, the stars burned cold and bright, the world kept turning. And Serena Draven now, stood at the center of it all, no longer afraid. She'd survived the wild, and claimed it as her own. The years that followed were not easy. There were border disputes and harsh winters, political challenges from lowland nobles who didn't respect territorial authority, threats from neighboring kingdoms who saw Kael's marriage to an outsider as weakness. They faced all of it together. Serena learned to fight properly, became known as the Queen Who Sparred. She established trade agreements between the territories and the lowlands, bridging cultures that had been divided for generations. When clan leaders came to the keep with grievances, she sat beside Kael and helped negotiate solutions that balanced strength with fairness. Her family rebuilt. Edwin started a new business, smaller, more ethical, profitable in ways that didn't require selling his children. Margaret opened a school in Ashford, teaching girls to read and manage finances so they'd never be trapped like she'd been. Daniel joined the Territorial Guard, trained alongside wolf-born warriors, found his own strength. Marcus Hale's business collapsed within a year. Victoria Cross called his loans, seized his assets, left him with nothing. Last Serena heard, he was working as a clerk in some lowland trading house, bitter and broken and no longer a threat to anyone. She didn't waste time thinking about him. 5 years after the wedding, Serena stood on the battlements again, this time with a daughter on her hip, dark-haired and gray-eyed like her father, stubborn like her mother. Below, the training yard was full. Warriors sparred, children learned basic forms. The keep thrived. Kael found them there, smiled when he saw his girls silhouetted against the sunset. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Serena looked at her daughter, at her husband, at the territory stretched below, at the life she'd built from nothing. "I'm thinking about running," she said. Kael raised an eyebrow. "Second thoughts?" "No. I'm thinking about the girl who ran from her wedding, who had no plan except survival, who was so scared and desperate she threw herself off a metaphorical cliff." Serena smiled. I'm thinking about how running away was the best decision I ever made. Even with all the chaos it caused? Especially because of the chaos. She shifted their daughter to her other hip. If I'd stayed, I'd have spent my whole life being someone else's idea of who I should be. Running gave me the chance to figure out who I actually was.
And who's that?
Serena looked at him. At the man who'd saved her and challenged her and loved her enough to let her choose.
Someone strong enough to survive anything, she said. Someone brave enough to fight for what matters. Someone who doesn't run from fear anymore. She paused. Someone who runs toward the things worth having instead.
Cale kissed her. Their daughter giggled between them, reaching for his face. I love you, he said. I know. They stood together as the sun set over the mountains, painting the world in shades of gold and amber. Behind them, the keep bustled with life. Ahead, the future stretched uncertain and beautiful and entirely theirs to shape. Serena had started her journey as a fugitive, a runaway, a girl with nothing but fear driving her forward. She'd ended it as a queen, a partner, a woman who'd claimed her own destiny and refused to let anyone take it from her. What began as a desperate escape ended as a complete transformation. She didn't just survive the wild, she became it, fierce and free and absolutely unbreakable. And she never looked back. The end.